Da, da, da. Dramatic intro. Joe's here with us, Martin and me. Let's see. I'm not sure if anybody else is going to be joining us, Joe.
Okie doke.
I was kind of hoping that Pope would be here, but I've not heard back from him. So
I got up late. I'm sorry, guys. I'm still in the middle of eating my eggs.
Oh, no worries.
That's why the
because you have your avatar up, nobody will know. And I'm sitting on some not so great internet, so I have to stay off camera to do the show.
I hear you, brother.
But I see D-Bud is here. Guten Morgen. Sci-Fi Mombi is here. Good morning. And today's film that we are discussing is a film I think I've wanted to watch since it came out. It came out in 2019. And it's about the Battle of Long Tan. It's called Danger Close. It's got a great cast. It's a film that did not fly under the radar with me. It's just one of those films where I wasn't sure if I was going to get a chance to ever watch the film or talk about it because even though Australia is an ally, of course, of our country, I often tend to, not intentionally all the time, but ignore or not notice films from other countries about battles. I tend to focus more on stuff that impacted the United States. And I really should pay more attention to stuff like this because New Zealand and Australia were the two countries that really stuck with the treaty. Because a lot of people don't know that the reason why we were in Vietnam wasn't because the president sent us there. We were there because of a treaty. And we had sworn to uphold that treaty. And so Australia was bleeding a lot with us. I mean, you look at history and you'll find so often Canadians and Australians right there with us in the fight. In particular, the British too, don't get me wrong, but you will find more often than not Australians because they feel very akin to the United States because they were started by the British and they sort of got their independence, even though they are still to this day part of the British Empire. They have a certain amount of autonomy, and they have their own elections, and but they never got a constitution like the United States. One thing that makes our republic so different: we are not a democracy. I really get tired of people saying that because it's not what we are. We use the democratic process. We are a constitutional republic. That means we're a republic that its laws are protected by a piece of paper called the Constitution. And it's what differs us from so many other countries. But we have people within our country now currently acting to try to destroy the Constitution. And the minute you do that, we fall to become a democracy. And if you know your history, every single democracy has failed, usually quickly, because it just don't work.
You just keep repeating that as much as you need to, Gary.
Well, people don't understand it. They go, well, it's democracy. No, it's not a democracy. We are a republic, and specifically, we are a constitutional republic. It means we have the laws of the land that support our liberty and freedom. And our freedom is very specific. We're free men is what we are. But you can't just walk into a place and take something. So we're governed by certain laws that we oversee. The problem is we tend to elect officials. That's part of a republic is electing officials using the democratic process to represent you. The problem is these politicians have forgotten who they represent. And we have an insane fucking country right now.
Yeah, me and Danny cover that every Sunday. We got a whole section called the best and brightest, and that's the people we send up there to represent us that are actually fleecing us blind.
You and Danny whom?
My brother.
The
show
no shit.
I do every week, the Brothers Hack the Matrix, where we talk about politics and stuff. Yeah.
Well, I was wondering what the fuck you guys talk about. I'm usually like in the middle of shit, so I never get to see you guys.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, like I feel so, um, I feel like I'm put to the wheel because of my career, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
constantly working more than I should have to because I don't charge a lot of money for the work that I do. And whereas I should be at this point in my career, but getting screwed the way I did on my career, I tended to go a lot cheaper. So I
Yeah,
ended up doing 2 to 3 times more work than I should be.
we're all
And
starving artists, buddy. Yeah.
that's what it is. That's what you
Mhm.
are. You are a struggling, starving artist.
Yep.
And once you take that as your lifelong goal,
Hmm.
uh, you have to take the good and the bad with it. The thing that sucked with me, I don't know about you,
Hmm.
I had a medical career to back me up. So my
Hmm.
medical career paid the bills all the way until 1997 when my art career took off and started paying for itself, and I was able to step away. But when things went south in 2010, thanks to thank you, Obama.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks a lot.
and George W. Bush had his fair share of blame in it too. But we had a president, acting president, sitting president, who sat in two administrations not doing anything for the economy. And
Hmm.
one of the first signs you're in a down economy is when creatives are not getting regular work.
Yeah.
Creatives are really, it's a barometer to know how the industries are doing because companies will lay off creatives before they lay anybody else off. And when I
Yeah.
got laid off uh, in 2009, um, I knew I was in trouble because the country was in trouble because the economy tanked. But the problem was we had a president that sat on top of that bad economy for 8 years
Yeah.
and did nothing to solve it.
Yeah.
It wasn't until going into the 2017 that I saw a big change in my career and I started making money again.
Hmm.
And that was redheaded guy. What's his name? I can't think of his name right now. Mag or something. Anyway, it's Trump. I'm just fucking around. Uh,
Right.
you can't see my face right now. I'm being very sarcastic.
But
Um, hey man, you didn't
my
get screwed by the system the way we did. Creatives went into a 90 percentile fucking job loss.
and he's right. It does go that way. And uh
That's 90% of your artistic creative workforce were unemployed for 8
it's
fucking years.
discretionary money. It's stuff that people have on hand that they can spend on stuff they like. And when you don't have that, we suffer for it. It's never been the main focus for me because twofold. Well, one, I had kids early, so you have
Yeah,
to have a
unlike
regular
most people, I
job.
had to raise my kid by my fucking self,
Right,
Kingsport gal. I had to
right.
raise her by myself with no child support.
Yeah,
So I worked my fucking ass off
yeah,
trying to
exactly.
make sure bills were paid.
Right, and your art suffers because of that. I mean, I'm not saying it suffers. We're always drawing. We're always doing stuff like that. We may not be making
Yeah.
money at it sometimes, but we're always working on stuff like that.
Yeah, and I ended
It's
up
never been the
homeless
main
over it.
focus for
I
me
just
because when
I
I
don't
did,
take this shit lightly, Kingsport Cal. I
yeah,
was fucking homeless with a child, trying to
I,
figure out how to make my life work when nobody would fucking hire me. I
yeah,
had 20 years experience as a designer in graphics and web design. And I'm an award-winning graphic designer. I've won everything from design awards to the Addy Awards. I don't know if you know what an Addy Award is, but if you win an Addy Award for your work, you're doing some good fucking work as an artist. And I went from that to being unemployed to not being able to find work and to having to figure out on my own how to survive
yeah.
a shitty presidency.
Mhm.
And it started to pick up, but I was already in my 50s. And by the time the economy took off, nobody was going to ever hire me again. I'm in my 50s.
Yeah, because a
My
lot of it's
40s were
reputation,
screwed.
and if you're not doing it all the time, people don't know who you are.
Well,
I mean,
that's the other thing
yeah,
with it is when you're doing art and design, if you are not staying on the latest uh, uh, stuff going on in the industry, you fall behind.
hmm
And that's ended up what happened because I wasn't getting challenged by having a regular job. So therefore, I was doing the whatever was necessary for me to keep the lights on and the kid fed. And by 2017, I was starting to make a little bit more bread, but Zoe was growing up at that point. I'd already gone through the toughest years
Mm-hmm.
and survived it.
Yep.
And nobody gets a congratulations for that survival but me, because I'm the one who made every single thing happen. And
Your kids remember it. Your kids remember.
My daughter does, and
Yeah.
and she called me yesterday on Mother's Day because I was her mother. I was her
Hello.
mother and
Yeah.
her father.
Mm-hmm.
And so she always calls me every Mother's Day to wish me a happy Mother's Day,
Mm-hmm.
which I feel bad for her because she kind of gets stuck. She gets stuck in this fucking situation where she knows her mother, and her mother just is not ever going to be that person for her. Never going to be
my daughters and my son are in the same situation. Yeah.
And so I sat there last night, and she's talking to me. She's having a rough day, and she's wanting to let me know how much she loves me and appreciates me. And all I'm thinking about is like, I wish I could take this pain from you, because I know what that pain is like, because I had a piece of shit mother,
Mm-hmm.
and I did, my mom died in 2013, January of 2013, from leukemia, and I never knew her. And I was trying, I had to go through a second custody battle in 2013, unemployed, by the way, going through a custody battle, having to figure out how to pay an attorney off. Boy, oh boy, did I whore myself out as an artist then.
You know what? I do not envy you that task, man. I was blessed. Both of my divorces I did myself.
And the reason why, by the way, I had to go through a second custody battle. Divorce is one thing. Custody is another thing. The reason I had to go through a second custody
I'm blessed. The girl
is
signed
with
away
my mom.
So
my mom was dying of leukemia, and I wanted to spend the last months of her life with her to help take care of her, for my daughter and I to live part-time with her and to have our own place. And so I could be there certain days of the week to make sure she was taken care of. And by proxy, get to know my fucking mother. Finally get to know her. And I got robbed of that because the minute my ex's family found out about it, we're back in court again. I'm back in Missouri. I couldn't go back to Arizona. And in the middle of this custody battle, my mom died. And I had to tell her I loved her over a telephone, which couldn't even respond to me. She was they had intubated her, so she couldn't speak.
Wow.
So just, I told Zoe one day when she turned 18 years old, I said, this isn't just a birthday gift for you today. It's a gift for me, because I don't ever have to talk to that side of your family ever
spark
again.
Anything, Kingsport Cal. Don't worry about that. Gary, he likes going off on
No, man, I love you, dude. Fuck off, man. I love you. I argue with my best friends, and we end a conversation with "Good night, buddy. I'll see you next time."
That's
all
it.
right.
It's called civil discourse.
I can hardly wait until you bring some subject up that'll rub me the wrong way.
Right.
That's what friends do.
Yeah.
All my friends, we argue all the time. It's just the way I am, and I don't hold a grudge. I don't fucking get angry at people. But I stand my ground. I always do, because I know that where I'm standing, what I've seen, that I am absolutely 1,000% correct on everything I've assessed in my life and what I've watched.
Yeah.
I got no special treatment ever for anything. I had to fight for any chance I ever got. And I've spent times as a child even homeless. It just I grew up dirt poor, and on the welfare system. And my dad, the only thing that kept him from ever being white trash was the fact that he was so intelligent, and he constantly educated me, reading to me. And but his disabilities fucked him over. Me, I've got my disabilities coming on. I'm trying to file for it because my back's fucked. My neck is fucked. If somebody had 25 years ago told me, Gary, sit straight up when you're doing your artwork, don't lean forward.
Yeah,
I would
have watch
still probably never listened to him. I like to go back in time so I could tell myself, stop leaning forward, because I'd lean forward doing my artwork and slump and slouch. And now my C2 sits in front of my C3. The immortal words of my doctor when he took the x-rays and did an MRI, came back, he says, yeah, well, I've looked at everything and your neck is fucked. In fact, your entire spine is fucked.
Thanks a lot, pal.
I'm like, because he's former military. So I said, like, when you say fucked, what do you mean? He goes, we can't do shit for you surgically. And all we're going to be able to do is try to, make it less painful for you as you get older. I went, oh, great. So it's already bone on bone in my spine. It's like when I used to hear people talk about this. I never knew what it was going to be like until you feel it. Bone on bone in your spine.
My God, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, man. No.
It's fucking awful. And I can only stand for so long, unsupported. I have a walker that I can use as well as a cane. And when I use them, I do a lot better. But boy, when I got to do dishes, I'm leaning. And I've only got a few minutes to get those dishes done. And then I got to go sit the fuck down again because of my back. Mm-hmm. And I fucking hate it. And
he's not kidding, folks. Watch your posture and everything you do. Ergonomics is an important thing.
It absolutely is. And I sit straight up a lot now. I tend to not slouch when I do the artwork. My tablet helps me because I use a computer tablet and I put it up close to me. So I'm like, got it right up to me and I'm drawing and my elbow is supported. My shoulder is supported because along with that torn rotator cuff, I've got a huge fucking blade of arthritis in my right shoulder that just gets fucking goofy.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I I fucked up a couple of years back. It was during the show. I remember talking about it on the show. I'm gonna go get on camera just for a second.
Mm-hmm.
I had made a mistake and taken a calcium supplement. Men don't need to take iron and we don't need to take calcium.
No.
We get it through a lot of other sources. I took an excess amount of calcium for a few weeks. It wasn't long. It was about a month at most. And I was suddenly having this weird back pain. And suddenly one night, it was so bad, I couldn't posturally change it to stop it. Nothing I could take would stop it. It was the worst fucking pain I'd ever had. I ended up in the emergency room the next day. And the pain I was feeling that night when I was in and out of consciousness was me passing that stone. It went through the ureter, from the kidney through the ureter into my fucking urethra, and I passed it with no pain in my urethra. And they said, yeah, we took x-rays, there's a little bit of damage, but you'll recover, but you had kidney stones. And I'm like, how the fuck? And then I stopped and went, I took that calcium. Oh, and I told them, they said, yeah, that's what did it. Because they were like going, well, soda will do it to you. I went, I have drank soda my entire fucking life. And it does not do that for me.
You did something to loosen something up, buddy. Yeah.
I did something dumb. And normally I'm smarter than that. And I kick myself in the ass for that. So whenever I take supplements now, I always study them first.
Yeah.
Before I take a supplement. And the only
Don't worry, Pope, you haven't missed anything, man. Me and Gerry been comparing notes on art careers and all that stuff.
Yeah, bitching about, that 8 years where the economy languished. Nothing. There was no growth, zero growth. Yeah. And the first jobs that get laid off from companies are creatives because they can outsource it. And that's what I ended up surviving on for a while, was just doing contracts, independent contracts. I did work for companies out of Chicago. I did one for an airline, and I got so pissed working on that one, I quit the agency. I had an agency in Phoenix that represented me. And I said, I don't ever want to work with you fuckers again. That was the shittiest fucking job I ever had. I put so much time into that job doing edits. And this is what I've said about my career over and over again. Fuck working to committees. Don't ever do it.
Oh God, that is the worst.
Mm-hmm.
I quit when I was working for IDW. I got hired, and it hurt my career when I did this, but I got angry. And Scholastic hired me to do a graphic novel about Custer's Last Stand with an old friend of mine, Amin Ahmad. And the two of us were going to do this book together. And I had been working on it for 3 weeks and hadn't gotten one page done because they kept making changes.
Oh, good God, no.
And I told Tom, man,
Couldn't
I love you,
decide
man,
collectively what
but I
they
can't
wanted.
survive on this. I'm a single dad raising the kid. I got to be able to have a constant income. That income is not coming in. I'm in trouble. So I said, I hate doing this, but I'm backing out because you cannot manage artists by committee because nothing will get done in time. It'll always be late. And you'll be going through revision after revision after revision.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always
all right, buddy.
always kept my art career on a low key, word of mouth kind of. I give out cards at different vendor shows.
So you expect Loki to take care of you? Is that what
Exactly.
you're saying?
That's what it is. No, I do that purposely because I've never been where you were at, successful enough to make it your main source of income. I've never been able to do that. So I've always kept it low key.
I only did it because of IDW. IDW really gave me the boost I needed. Tom,
right across
I
the
got to
street
tell you,
from
Tom
us,
was a godsend.
we had a friend. They're cleaning the house out, and this lady was in the front yard telling me who the next tenant was. She goes, I've bought one of your pieces of art before. I was like, what? she goes, yeah. You did one of my son on the back of a horse. Do you remember that? I was like, Gerry, I've done so many of these things. I can't remember everything I've ever done. You know what I mean? And I was like, ma'am, no, I'd love for you to get me a picture of it. And, I'd love to see it because it was probably something I did 30 years ago. You know what I mean? And, but yeah, I've always kept it low key because I haven't had that kind of success. And it takes a long time, guys, for an artist to get that kind of success. You have to get your name out there.
It's hard work because I've been working since the 80s. I started working in 86 professionally for a magazine. And it wasn't until 11 years later, I was making enough money to survive. By the way, I do want to show this before we get into the slideshow here. This guy is the one who helped me the most with my art career. Tom Waltz, New York Times best-selling writer, former U.S. Marine as well as Army veteran. He was one of those dual enlistment guys. He's one of my closest friends, oldest friends. We were business partners for years. That guy saved my life. When my career fell apart, he started getting me work at IDW because I'd already been doing animation for them. I was their director of their animated trailers for a lot of their projects. I worked on everything from Steve Nile books and Bertie Wrightson to Transformers. In fact, it's funny. They released my All Hail Megatron trailer the same week I finished Code Word Geronimo for them. And All Hail Megatron was the last animated trailer I did for them. From that point forward, they only worked with me as an artist. And it was good. Tom kept me busy, kept me making money. And I owe that guy. This guy right here. He writes Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He also works on My Little Pony for IDW. This guy is just one of the best kind of friends you can ever have as an artist.
You always remember the guys that help you out when you're down and out, man. My buddy like that, his name is Ken Albert. I will never be able to sing his praises enough. When I was on welfare with 3 kids, he was there with a joint and a 40 every night, helping me out with the kids. Yep.
So let's get this back started going here, and I'll turn off my camera. So this is a tough film, man. Did you guys see it, Pope? Did you see it, Joe?
I have not seen this one. I'm here to learn about the history of it.
Yeah, this one is one I'm not familiar with. Oh wait, no, this one's Danger Close. That's right. Yeah, I have seen this one.
Yeah, it's I got to tell you, man, I was not expecting this to be as intense as it was. Boy,
Yeah, this movie goes hard in a lot of ways.
yeah, it does. There are 3 books that I know of that are still available. You can get them on in Amazon or on any of the book websites stores. The Battle of Long Tan, the company commander's story, Harry Smith. Peter Fitzsimmons, The Battle of Long Tan, and David W. Cameron's The Battle of Long Tan. And his subtitle is Australia's 4 Hours of Hell in Vietnam. And this battle that they fought, it was really flat terrain, oddly for Vietnam, but it was a what do you call it? A rubber plantation. That is a weird. Look at that one. What formation is that? It's like a wedge formation meeting another reverse wedge formation.
It's like a platoon wedge form. No, sorry, a company. Yeah, no platoon wedge.
It's 2 wedge formations, and then you got guys trailing off to the right.
Spread out at all.
This is weird looking to me, and I've never seen anybody do this before. Move that.
Yeah, it looks like an inverted one in front. And then it looks
that's
like
what I'm talking about. Inverted wedge formation.
No, that's 3 of them. Well, there's 2 in the front, and then the command element in the rear middle.
See what you're talking about.
But these 2, the front 2, should be way more spread out than they are.
We're seeing 2 points.
Well, absolutely, they should be. They should be, about 15 yards apart.
Yeah, I'd say they are too close together. Yep.
And
with that much space, you should be able to spread out.
Plus, on top of that, you've got an RTO there on the bottom right. Can you see him?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Really odd position for an RTO. You usually want to keep them in one of the most protected positions.
Well, you also keep them right
in
next
Vietnam,
to
well, you have something referred to as walking point. So they would usually do stagger formations and have one person, possibly 2 guys out on point. You end up seeing that during the battle, at the beginning of the Battle of Long Tan. And I got to tell you, I immediately had to pause the movie because I knew, because everything went dead silent and everybody just sort of stopped in their foot and they're looking around because they know they're not alone. And they're like, and everybody's sort of holding position. I'm like, I would have fucking given an order to get the fuck down right then and there.
Yeah.
Because when you get that feeling, especially when you hear wildlife stop making noise, it's time to shut the fuck up and get down and hunker down. The problem is there was no way to entrench themselves here. This was a lot of flat land. Eventually, they found a safe area from a bomb explosion. And so this formation here is just weird to me. I've never seen that. And in all my years, I've never seen a formation like this. But they're Australian, so I don't know. Now, I will point out, too, that majority of the people that fought in this battle were conscripted soldiers, which means they weren't regular military. They were there for just their national service, and that's it. Which was like often just one tour or what have you. So these guys also weren't as well trained. They're what we call green, what you call in the gaming industry noobs.
Yeah.
And you get guys like this gentleman, and you know him from Vikings and all that shit. Great fucking actor right here. He's pissed. He's in this unit. He doesn't want to work with conscripted soldiers. He wants to be, he wants to go SAS, Special Forces. He wants to go back to Special Forces.
Yeah.
And his commander's like, you'll do what I fucking tell you. He says, but I'm trained to be a commando, not a babysitter.
And there's part of the problem with putting elite forces in charge of conscripts is that's not what these guys are for.
No, it's a total waste of personnel, no doubt. It's crazy.
And right off the beginning, you get a general idea. There's a discipline issue here. We got one guy that's on guard duty with another dude fucking off drinking beer while he's on guard duty. He ends up having a pop off and in the scene and gets in a bunch of fucking trouble. In fact, one of my favorite moments after all this shit goes down is when the main character, the guy from Vikings, fucking, oh, and this fucking LT right here, that's their XO right there. Fucking won't quit his fucking game. I'm winning here. And artillery's coming in, threat of being overrun. He doesn't care. He plays his fucking game. Finally, the guy picks up the fucking table and throws the cards off. He says, do your fucking job.
And it's the sergeant who does that. Because it's not even the major, it's the sergeant.
The fucking sergeant, played by the kid. And I should go get their names, because I always forget their names. Danger Close, because I really do like this film. I was surprised just how good this film was.
What year did it come out, Gary?
2019.
19.
Which is 50 years? Because the battle was in 69.
Yeah, so
August of 69. But yeah, it was the anniversary. I just, I forget. My math is terrible. Is that 50 years? Yeah, it's 50 years. 69 to 2019.
Yeah, that's 50 years.
Yeah, 50. 50th anniversary of the battle. And I wanted to go ahead and show you while we're doing this, before I start to strip back up, some photos from the actual incident and some of the guys that were in it. And I like their hats. I had a hat very similar to that.
Me too. Mm-hmm.
My little boonie cap.
Boonie hat. That's it. We
Mounted.
had those on Johnson Island. A little bit bigger brim with a drawstring, but
what is that? It doesn't look big enough to be a 50, but that butterfly, what is that? Those look like,
I don't know. If I had to guess,
it looks like a 30 cal. It doesn't look like 50s
I don't know.
in his hand. Because that's what you can gauge it by, is how it's laying across his hand. I think that's a mounted 30. One of the weapons they used in this, M113.
That is actually it's a 30 cal, but it's a weird Russian version. That is, I think, a 30 cal DP that somebody converted to belt fed. It's
interesting, isn't it? Going back here, this is the M113. This is the first vehicle I was licensed on in the Army as an ambulance, but we had those ambulances immediately replaced, so I was glad. Driving those things is weird.
That guy in front's got a 60.
It's basically just a big aluminum box.
Well, you got to either sit up high, you got to pop your seat up and have your head sticking out, or if you're down below and you're looking through the little viewers. And I'm telling you, that's weird. But I can park that sucker on a dime, because you can do a perfect 360 in it if you know how to handle treaded vehicles. And I drove a few bulldozers when I was younger, so I was like, yeah, this fuck shit's easy.
I saw some M1 Abrams blow the shit out of some of those things on Fort Hood.
Oh yeah, they've got that side. There is no protection on that fucking side.
Yeah, we used to use those for target practice.
Yeah, we did too. We did do for practicing with rocket propelled grenades to fucking firing laws. We practiced on M113s.
APCs, the most beat up piece of military equipment ever.
Oh yeah, they drove those things hard and put them away wet.
Yeah.
This is from the ceremony after the battle, because so many men lost their lives. It was 108 guys versus 1,500 North Vietnamese and Viet Cong.
Well, the estimate is between 1,500 and 2,500.
Wow.
The report I read had it was different, so it doesn't matter. But here's one of the few color photos I ran into of the actual guys out there. But once again, I want to point out, not only are we seeing something that's typical forest rather than jungle, is the fact that terrain, look how flat it is compared to other things you see in Vietnam. Because Vietnam's a very hilly place, but this is a rubber tree plantation. And there's a huge, and they show it in the film, strips cut out of the tree
Mhm.
and the cups that capture the rubber on these things. And here's another good shot. God, I would fucking hate to march on that fucking road.
Oh man,
God, yeah.
come on.
Calling
Your
that a
boots
road
would
is
weigh
generous.
50 pounds by the time you were done.
Oh my God. But that's again the M113. It was an American-made vehicle. The basic design that also led to the Bradley. The Bradley kind of based its main chassis off of the M113. And it had, of course, the same weakness that the M113 had. And I'm glad those things went out of fashion. Our unit was the first unit to get Humvees. And so I was really happy when we got those Humvees.
They still had Jeeps when I was in, man. Yeah.
Now, again, I want to point out, just like the British, their ranks, their chevrons are upside down compared to the way the U.S. does it.
Well, they're
Ours used to
Australian.
be that way. Back in the 1800s, ours used to be that way. Around about the turn of the century, we flipped those.
Yeah, when we fought all the way through the Plains Wars, the chevrons were upside down on our uniforms. It wasn't until close to I think it was during the Philippines.
It was either
which
the
was
Philippines or
18
the Spanish-American War, and I can't remember which.
See, the Philippines kind of fell into that, and it was in that gray area because it was part of it. But that's when they started changing the way our uniforms. And it's weird that the Marine Corps and the Army kind of followed suit at the same time.
Which you never see. Usually, if one of the services does it, the other one won't, out of principle.
Right. Don't want to look like the other guys.
Exactly. Like, oh well, he's doing it. I'm not doing it then.
Yeah.
Which is something funny because, like, there was a time when I was like an expert on the ranks of all the branches, but I go and I forget what things are now. I'm like, oh shit, I forget what the fuck that is.
Yeah.
It's the equivalent of a sergeant. But then I point out, like in the Navy and in the Marine Corps, that especially during training in the Marine Corps, NCOs still recognize the officer aspect of who they are, and that's why it's the same thing with chief petty officers. A chief petty officer is an NCO and senior NCO, and they are called sir in the Navy.
That's it. Well, when you actually get into the fleet, you call them chief. It doesn't matter if you're in the Marines or the Navy. You call them chief.
Chief.
Yeah.
Chief, senior chief, or master chief. And God help you if you call master chief chief. He will murder you.
That's like calling a master sergeant sergeant. It's like,
Yeah.
Wait a minute. What the fuck did you just say to me?
What did you just say to me?
Yeah, it would be like,
what did you call me?
It would literally be like calling a sergeant major sarge.
Do you want to fuck my sister? Do we have a relationship? Something going on here? Are we friendly? It's like, no, for sergeant.
Right? It's just like, oh, you can say, I am gonna die.
Although I will tell you, once you get familiar with your first sergeants, absolutely you get away with calling them top. I called mine top all the time.
Yeah,
in the Marine Corps, you cannot. That is not anything you do.
Yeah, Army's totally different.
Sergeant. Yeah.
Yep.
But the weird thing with senior enlisted ranks in the Navy is their ranks are shiny, just like officers. I cannot tell you how many times I've accidentally walked by a Navy chief and saluted him.
Because it's too far away and you can't tell.
Well, all I know is, hey, it's a shiny thing. It's an officer. Cool.
Right.
Morning, sir. I'm a chief.
Have you ever gotten stuck in a salute?
Yep.
Fucking asshole officers, man.
Mm-hmm.
Although
some of them do it on purpose, just to fuck with you, and then they'll come back. You're standing there. You cannot leave that position until they return the salute. Finally, the officer would come back and give us a salute, and I'm like, he fucking sat in there for 10 fucking minutes, knowing we were out here holding that position.
Yep.
Immediately, I did not like that officer when he did that.
Oh, we got ours back for that one because he was outside. He was outside talking to another officer or a senior enlisted guy. So we all lined up because the regulation states that if you're less than 6 feet apart, only one of you has to salute. So we lined up exactly 7 feet apart, and then walked by him, and every single one saluted him. Just morning,
Damn,
sir.
Pope.
Morning, sir.
Oh, that's funny.
That's how you have to do things in the service. You have to know what the regs are and go just beyond it.
Tweak.
Yep. Sorry, Andre just messaged me, so I had to respond to him.
How is
For
he?
midnight. He's doing pretty good. He was trying to figure out if he can make it to my birthday thing this Friday.
That may be the most base guy on the planet. The more I watch him, the more I like him. It's so funny.
Andre, he's very based.
Yeah.
Dude is awesome.
And from what I hear, Pope, he's a metalhead.
Yep. Well, he's from Norway. I just assumed that at this point. That's like the home of heavy metal at this point.
Right.
Now you'll see that once again, other American equipment's being used by Australians here.
There's our horse.
They had their own pilots for the Australian helicopters. So they had their own Huey pilots. Same thing also for a lot of things except for air support, real air support, which is fighters. And now you'll see that happens in here. We see guys, American F4s coming in, dropping ordnance. And I'm assuming it's supposed to be napalm because it looked like the way it exploded was supposed to be napalm on a position. But the film is called Danger Close because they got attacked on all sides. And here I will give you the map here. On the left here is enlarged area at the right. And that's this area here, showing where Task Force headquarters was, how they moved into position on the plantation, and how they ended up getting attacked on the flanks. And it's what got so many guys killed in this battle. They got outflanked.
And that is literally the worst position to be in, especially if you get hit on both flanks, because no matter which way you turn, you are giving your back to somebody.
Yeah. So, and it's something, by the way, they teach in Marine Corps now that I was told by an expert that they still show that footage of Val Kilmer facing opponents front and back in the movie Heat. For training, because it was so well executed, because they had a special forces guy showing how to do that. He's the one who oversaw Val Kilmer doing that scene. They said that this is the best example they'd ever seen of someone fighting opponents coming from two different directions of how to do it.
And the way he was doing it is probably the best way to do it. It's one of those, there is no good way to do it. There's only like slightly better ways to do that.
Right.
Like, it's always dangerous.
Quick mag dumps, quick reloads, and immediately return fire.
Yeah, you basically just have to lay down as much fire as you can and pray you don't get hit.
Yep. And in this film, by the way, this is the young troublemaker here. He's the one who he grabbed by the throat, and I'm not sure if he's about to do or if he just did it. Because he grabbed him by the fucking throat and held him up, cutting off his air supply. He says, I should just let you fucking die right now. And my brother was like that. My brother Steve, he was a fuck job. He was a Marine and just fucked up left and right. And they basically made him a radio operator and put him at the back. And when he fell into the water of a rice paddy off of the dike, and he was like on the verge of drowning, he took mental note that a majority of the team walked by him without helping him.
Oof.
They're going to let him
you're
fucking die.
You are not just a fuck up, you are the platoon fuck up. Is like people have stopped trying to fix you. Yep.
And so that was the wake-up call for my brother, and he stopped being a fuck chop after that and got his head out of his ass. And that's what this guy needed too, because he's fucking around drinking while on guard duty and then has a pop-off, you know? Anybody knows that if you have a pop-off, have you ever had that happen, Pope? Where somebody fires without orders?
So, funny story. we were doing blank fire training, prepping for our deployment. And the day before, we had been doing live fire training. And apparently, one of our guys forgot to clear his mags.
Oh,
At the bottom of one of his magazines were 2 live rounds, and he put 2 live 5.56 rounds through his blank fire adapter. So the first one just jammed it up, and the second one blew the gun apart, which was good because he was pointing at my company CO at the time because he managed to get the drop on him.
Oh shit!
So yeah, not only an ND almost killed an officer.
Wow.
So yeah, he was not treated well after that.
I'm sure.
Because
this is the scene where he wants to leave, and a lot of people, I don't know if you recognize this guy.
It's Moriarty.
That is Richard Roxburgh, and he is best known for not Moriarty. He's best known for playing Dracula in that Hugh Jackman movie.
Oh, Helsing.
Oh. Yeah. Oh my God! Don't remind me of that movie.
He's the villain.
I love that movie.
In the Ewan McGregor musical in Paris.
Moulin Rouge?
Moulin Rouge.
Yeah.
He's the villain. He's got the annoying nasal accent when he talks.
He's a really good actor, man. I dig the guy.
Roxburgh's fantastic. What I know him best for is a little Australian TV show called Rake, which they tried to bring to the U.S. and it flopped.
Well, a lot of those cross-cultural shows like that, like a lot of the British TV shows that they've tried to bring over to the U.S., there's something in the cultural translation there that just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem was they toned down the comedy, the edginess of the comedy to be more on NBC, and that's what killed it.
There you go.
Now, if you've ever watched the show Rake, he debases himself with drugs and whores constantly while being a barrister in Australia.
So a typical lawyer. Got it.
He's despised.
That's different from
he's
normal.
Pretty much despised by even the people that love him in his life, and he's fucked up. He fucked up his marriage, and he's constantly trying to do better. And often, what ends up happening is he tries to do something for the right reason, but in the process, does a whole bunch of other stupid shit in the middle of it, and just. My God, if you've never seen this show, I can't explain it to you. You have to watch it. Rake with Roxburgh. He is so fucking good in it. Richard Roxburgh. What's funny is I didn't like him in the vampire Dracula movie. What was it? Van Helsing. Terrible movie. I fucking hated that movie.
It's one of those guilty pleasures, man. It's got best selling a boosty.
I understand guilty pleasures. I believe it. But
everybody wants to. At that point, was wanting to make their version of Underworld. Yeah, and Underworld wasn't even Underworld. I'll never watch it again. I enjoyed it. The first film.
I watched that movie for Kate Beckinsale, and that's about it.
That's it, man.
Every heterosexual male watched for that reason.
Bro. Come on.
And we all got our hearts broken when we found out that Sean motherfucker, that played Lucian, it was her husband. We were like, "Fuck you!"
Right? Kiss my sorry, bastard. But I love Van Helsing. I think it's a great movie. But I do recognize the fact that it's really bad.
Look who's here.
Kind of like Howard the Duck. I dig that movie, but I recognize that it's awful. Yes. Mm-hmm. It's Tim.
Let me run his video if I can find it. Okay.
It's there somewhere, Martin. You know you got it.
Yeah, somewhere. Here it is.
By what name are you known?
There are some who call me Tim.
I'm going to replace that with the word knee. Just forget it.
Yes. The knights who say
knee. I knew I'd raised my daughter right when she would walk around quoting the knights who say knee.
It's just a flesh wound.
Walking around doing lines from Monty Python all the time as a kid.
think my dad
Oh,
realized
well.
he made a mistake showing me that movie, like because he'd like call some lady he worked with a witch, and I'd just lean over the table and be like, "How do you know she's a witch?"
You turned me into a newt. Well,
I got better. Oh God.
There's a. It's
Let's
not an
get
outtake.
started, man. We'll be talking.
There's.
Python the
It's
rest
not
of
an
the show.
outtake, but there's a moment in that scene when John Cleese takes so long to respond to something that the other actor in front, Eric Idle, actually has to duck his head down because he starts laughing because Cleese is taking his time delivering the line, acting like he doesn't remember or can't answer. It's so fucking funny that it broke him. And it's in the film. It's still in the film.
Yeah, it's like in the in-laws. You can see sometimes one of them laughing at the jokes.
Oh my God.
Like that's got to be the hardest part in scenes like that is be able to keep your composure long enough to actually get the lines out.
Yep. Now I'm going to point something out very important in this film that Pope, I know you'll agree with me, and I think Joe would do, even though he was an MP. Maps are important, but compasses and maps are essential when you need to call in a fire mission or air support. Because if you don't know how to shoot a back azimuth, if you don't know how to triangulate and do a 8 to 10 digit grid coordinate, you are going to get people fucking killed, which we know that was part of the problem with the original commander of the
Easy
airborne
Company.
Easy Company, because he couldn't read a fucking map. You have to understand how to read a fucking map.
You
have to know how to use a compass.
A lieutenant with a map.
If you're going to be dropping shells
lieutenant with a map.
near your position, you better know how to read a map. That's for damn sure. Yeah. Okay.
Because if you
And
call
even just moving through terrain, do you have any idea how many guys I've seen get injured because some lieutenant doesn't know what contour lines look like and doesn't realize when they're really fucking close together, it means we shouldn't be going through there?
Right.
And a lot of people don't know this that aren't military, but you actually know how high something is by how many ridge lines are on it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Contour lines. Contour lines tell you how tall it is.
And how close they are together means how steep the slope is.
Right.
A lot of
how
lieutenants
steep
miss
it is.
that.
The closer they are, the more
Maps,
degree on the slant. Yeah.
You got to know how to do it. And you got to know how to shoot an azimuth and a back azimuth, and you need to know how to do an 8 to 10 digit
in my state where there's a
grid
lot of
coordinate,
water,
because if you don't know how to use the grids correctly with your compass, you will call a fire mission onto yourself. And they do in this one, but they do it on purpose. It's repeated in another film from the 80s called Platoon, where they had to call fire on their own position. Zips are in the wire, as they said.
Yep. Well, they show both things. They show both things in that movie. In Platoon, or earlier in that film, about midway through, they call in artillery, and the guy screws it up and ends up shelling his own guys. Yeah.
Yep. What is this? What is this? Tim says, my dad took this stuff at USAFA, so he should know this. And he was a B-52 navigator. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's even more complicated with navigators.
At least during
land navigation,
we have like landmarks that we can look at to see roughly where we are. When you're up in the air or at sea, there is no land. So you're just kind of, okay, what's our current position?
Coastlines are the best way to know what you're doing. If you know what direction you're going and you have a coastline within view, you can figure out where you're at.
Yeah.
That one scene with the navigator where he got confused because of the cloud cover, and he ended up having to guesstimate where they were. And thank God he was good at his job. Yeah, that was in the recent series,
Masters of the Air.
Masters of the Air, and that's
I cannot recommend highly enough. That was excellent.
Absolutely great fucking movie.
And people forget about the 8th Air Force back then, because now like the Air Force is seen as like the cushy job. Back then, they took heavier casualties than the infantry.
Yeah, I wanted to show this. I'm sorry, Pup. This is the strip they would take out of the bark, and it would slowly milk the tree of the sap used to make rubber.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping we get a shot of because there is a shot within the film where you see the cups that are there to catch the rubber drippings as they come out of the tree. But look how flat that terrain is in the fucking trees.
Yeah.
Bad luck for them that they managed to get ambushed in the one flat spot in all of Vietnam.
I
Right?
know, it's fucking insane. And when you see them, the way they have to lay down, there is a famous painting. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, here it is. Oh, that's too small.
That's what she
Oh, well,
said.
fuck it. Let's see. Let me see if I can add this one here. This is a famous painting of the battle by Bruce Fletcher.
Oh, yes, I saw
He's
that
Australian.
last night.
There it is.
Wow.
Look at how they're fucking laying down. That one dude standing up with a machine gun and firing, standing up. That's an insane battle scene right there.
Hmm.
I would not want to be in a fight like that. I would be absolutely shitting myself.
Especially because those of you who've ever done it in training or even for real, you low crawl for like 15 feet and you're wore the hell out.
Worn out.
Low
No
crawling
doubt.
is one of the hardest things to ever fucking do.
Especially
And-
without putting your head up. Like
And a lot of people don't know what that is. And just to explain it, you lay flat with your arms out with your weapon in one hand, and you take that hand and it's in front, and the other hand goes behind, and you're still laying flat. And then you slide up your right knee with your right arm and use your foot and knee to push you forward with the other leg going up. And
So
just keep
basically,
repeating that.
you're a lizard.
yeah.
Well, it's your gut never leaves the ground. That is what
the
low
point
crawling
is to keep your stomach on the ground to keep yourself as low as possible.
Yeah, for better illustration, we used to call it skull dragging because you are not raising your head that entire time.
You do not do it. Your head is
Hey.
tilted to one side.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up, Kyle?
That's me.
And
That's me. Here we go. Wait.
Hey, fuck you, Kyle.
basically, you can't look up, and
No.
all you do is tilt your head with your body flat to look where you're going and to make sure you're going in the direction you need to be going. And you low crawl, and they'll make you. That's actually a form of punishment if you fuck up too, is making you do that in the grass, and then your face gets all fucked up from the grass blade.
Mhm.
It's a nice little thing, and the hardest I ever had to do is when we had to do a one of the training ranges. You have to take a wounded soldier as a combat medic. You have to take a wounded soldier through all these different obstacles. And the last obstacle, and you're already fucking tired. You have two-man team has to drag a guy while trying to low crawl
Oh,
barbed wire with only one hand because you're holding the soldier with the other. You can't use
that's insane.
your man on the left. You can't use your right leg. You're only pushing constantly with your left leg, and you're doing that trying to get underneath that. And it's oiled sand.
Oh yeah.
I probably lost about 10 to 15 pounds on that fucking lane. I shit you not. I sweat so much and burned so much energy. It was crazy. But when you're a combat medic, now one thing they do in this film, I love this, is how important RTO is and how you lose your radio, how bad things can get.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause one team loses its radio. The guy gets hit and his radio is destroyed. On top of that, they have a fucking lightning strike hit the main radio antenna at the base where all the fire missions are being called out of for all their support.
That is pretty much the worst case scenario of well, you're boned.
Yeah. And then they would have to call in for equipment supply. They needed supply drops. And Hueys would come in, and the visibility was just terrible because of the tree line. And so what these guys would do is they would gauge the spot wherever the smoke grenade is. And I don't know if you do this in the Marine Corps and U.S. Army, you call out on the radio. You'll throw out 3 smoke grenades, all varying colors, and you call out on my red, because the red is the one that you need them to target. And you're doing that to confuse the enemy. Also to make sure that if they throw out a smoke grenade to try to confuse the situation, that they don't steal our equipment.
We actually changed that post Somali campaign. You don't ever call out the color of the smoke. You'll throw out a colored smoke grenade, and when you're talking to Hilo, and you'll be like, "All right, it's like Roger, red smoke. Roger, that's us. Come in." Because what happened was we used to call out like red or green or whatever, and the enemy would throw out like three of that color to try to get them to land.
That was the problem. That was the problem.
Positions.
And that's why we were told to throw out 3 different colored grenades and wait until right before they're there. And then we would give the order over the radio, on my red. And so the enemy wouldn't have a chance to. But that's interesting that they did that. By the way, I paused it here because this is one of the neat things they do in this film, thanks to the advent of CGI. They will go up and you will leave the guy in the battlefield, go to another location and see the artillery where it's at. They'll do it aerially. They'll take us aerially to that location. And then you'll see that weapon fire, and then we'll cut to that round going through the air, just like it is right here.
Yeah, those are beautiful shots.
I was really, yes, it still looks like CGI, but I didn't care. I felt like it really immersed you into what was happening.
Yeah, and there's no other way.
Yeah, how each thing was impacting the other. This was cool too. They were kind of having their own USO show, and this girl was there singing in the middle of this fucking battle taking place, and she had to get evac'd out of there.
Yeah, which I can only imagine, like trying to like keep calm and keep the show going while there's artillery pounding out right around you.
I know, and anybody that's ever been around artillery knows that the thing that you learn from artillery when it hits or when it's going off, the earth slaps your feet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does.
And it hurts. Mm-hmm. It takes getting used to. And the earth actually, because every single time that round goes off, it concusses the ground, and the ground will move and it'll back up in a snap and hit the bottoms of your feet. And if you've ever jumped off a window flat-footed, you know what that feeling can be.
Yep.
It's disconcerting. But again, some of their formations here kind of throw me off because people are too close together. I don't know who their military guy is, because I don't believe the SAS would operate that close together. By the way, most of the time you see that machine gun, it's actually being fired by the North Vietnamese. And you actually see them dragging one of those machine guns during the battle.
Yeah.
My gosh, there ain't much cover there. Good Lord.
And that's the FNLAR, right? That they're firing?
Yes. Yeah, that's the SLR that the British Army, I think they call it the L1A1.
Yeah, it looks so much like the FNLAR.
Yes.
And
it is an FAL, but it's semi-auto only, because the British found out that 308s on full automatic are damn near uncontrollable.
Yeah, you can't. It's like when I'm playing Call of Duty, I love the realism in that game, because my favorite weapon to use for long distance is a 308, and it actually offers you automatic on there. And I tried it one time, and it absolutely was impossible to fucking control. I was laughing, going, "Oh my god, they fucking made that realistic."
Yeah, the only 308 I've ever fired on full auto that ended up actually being not that bad was the German G3. Because those are actually pretty interesting, but that's because of the roller delay system that they use. So you don't get the full recoil right out.
See you,
another machine gun. Oh, gotta go?
Yes.
See you later, D-Bud. Thanks for stopping by, buddy.
The ultimate
one of the
wrench
hardest working wrenches going right now.
That's right.
Oh, hell yeah.
Especially since 6 took a step back. Now he's having to step up to do a lot of stuff she would normally do. So love D. Bud Martin, man. A good dude. Just a good dude. Yep, they were not good on full auto. The Argentinian army during Falklands. A lot of people don't know, because one of my closest friends, Ricky Checker, sat in my living room and opened up to me his experiences in combat in the Falklands. And he was drunk, and I just held him while he cried, talking about how brutal it got. And,
they don't talk about it unless they're drunk, do they? I mean, the only Vietnam story I ever heard from anybody that was a combat vet was during a Christmas party. We're up there in the S3 section, no, I think it was the S2 I was working for. I was the draftsman for the battalion on Fort Hood, and this guy that was in the first cav, he was one of the advisors that went in at the he was there early in that war, and he said the most beautiful thing he ever saw was same thing, point man Huey flying overhead. They would fly overhead at night to try and find the enemy. They'd send one ahead of them really fast just to draw fire. That's the only thing that Huey was doing. And then the rockets would come from all five of them behind it. Yep. You know what I mean? He said it was the most beautiful thing he ever saw. Yeah. But it takes them getting drunk to talk.
I will tell you the craziest, most beautiful thing I ever saw was a Comanche taking out a single floor of a building. And it looked like a sandblaster the way it was hitting that building. Oof. I had never seen anything like that in my life. Also, we got hit by hot brass.
Yeah.
From that.
Yep.
Imagine.
That shit fell right on us, and we're like, fuck. Everybody's like,
that shit's hot. That shit
I'm on fire.
Especially because if that's an Apache, that's a 30mm cannon. That's not, a normal 7.62 round.
Any brass hurts,
dusted that building. When I say dusted, that means you didn't see chunks flying. You just saw clouds of dust as that thing was debris down, and making sure nobody was in there. That was all they were doing, clearing the way for us. Now, I stopped it here for a reason, because I wanted to point out that this is 4-2, and then he says this is 4. What we would do today in some of those is this is 4 actual. Go ahead, 4-2. And this is your central commander. He's the guy in charge of the group, and each one has their secondary number designator. So 4 is number 1 group, and each group has their own designator for it. And I get confused when I watch SEAL Team, because they'll often just refer to the individual.
Well, because that's internal team comms. Like that's he is.
Well, even when they're talking to the con, the TAC, the talk. I'm sorry, when they're talking to the talk, they'll still do that, and it's to let them know which person is talking rather than speaking for the group. So there's no
small
group
units. That's easy to do.
Discussion. It's individual discussion with the talk. And I found that confusing at first, but then I got used to it. I get what's going on. I get it. But here, he's always going to be the one on the radio. And so I thought that was interesting. They're running low on ammo. So what ends up happening during the monsoon, they fly helicopters in. And they do something I'd never seen done before until this film, which is they tilt the helicopter over the
to make the drop
and dump everything out.
Which has to be fun for the crew chiefs, because they're basically just in there. They're not buckled down.
You see the guy grab on. You see him grab on when he hits.
Otherwise, he's going out the door with it.
Yeah, he's going with it. And that shit was crazy. And this is them getting her out of there. And as she goes up, she looks over to the probably the north. And when she looks to the north, she can actually see the battle from where she's at. It's that close.
Wow. Which is
this ends up being more like a world. I want to point out that this is very similar to the kind of warfare you saw in World War I right here. The first battle of Bellwood with the U.S. Marine Corps, this is how they fought.
Couldn't move. Just can't move.
That had just been wasted.
Oh,
eventually, one of the sad moments, I think that's when the radio guy got hit or the radio itself got hit. But there's a moment when the troublemaker you think's going to make it fucking gets nailed in the head. And they do a
That's-
CG bullet hole, which you can always spot CG,
Yeah.
yeah.
especially, like this, because they don't have the budget
Mhm.
to make it look more real. But that really took me by surprise when he buys it, because I was thinking he was going to become a better soldier because of his experience here under this guy.
Well, for a while during the battle, he became a better soldier. And no, I knew he was going to die when he started talking about his fiancée and
Yeah, it's like I can hardly
Oh,
wait to get home.
yeah.
You get home, gonna
You bring
fuck
Jody and
my
his girlfriends
girlfriend.
into
Yeah,
it.
he starts
baby.
he starts saying that shit. You see his buddies starts like shying away from him because no one wants to be too close because you just made sure you're gonna get hit.
Yeah, stay the fuck
Right.
away from that guy. Why? What's wrong with him? He has hope. He has hope.
He was talking about
He's-
life after the army.
He is dangerous. Do not go near guys with hope.
Never.
It's like,
Because
what
the
is that?
first thing you
Murphy's
learn-
Law of Combat: never share a foxhole with anyone braver than you.
Well, if you ever read the Book of the Samurai, one of the first things it teaches you is that in order to be the best soldier you can be, you must accept you're already dead.
Right.
Because, having hope will make you question things you do. You won't act instinctively. And you've actually got a better chance of getting killed because you're being too careful.
Second guessing yourself.
Yep. Do follow your training. They always tell you that. I know they did the same to you in the Marine Corps.
Yep.
Trust your
Oh yeah,
training.
man.
It will save your
That's
fucking
why
life.
we train. They're trying to get you to think instinctively, not to think, just react.
Yeah,
That's
over and over and over and doing shit. God, this is crazy. This is boring. It's like, yeah, but you'll get so good at it that you won't even think about it when you do it.
right. When you
Mhm.
actually, when the bullets start flying, you'll do exactly what you were trying to do.
Reloading a weapon, man.
No, that's muscle memory.
that was-
at a certain point.
It's
Yep.
muscle memory, but you get so good at it and you do it so fast doing mag dumps.
Mhm.
And you don't mind dumping the mag at first, because unless you're moving, it's okay to do a mag dump because you can pick that mag up later and reload, or
Yep.
someone else can reload for you. And but you do a quick mag dump, man, and it's fast. It's like once you get that thing loaded, you pop the mag in and you release the charging handle and you fucking go to town. It's a fast.
So later on,
move.
like towards the GWAT, we got trained. You don't work the charging handle unless you had a malfunction. Basically, the bolt will lock open on
Well,
the left.
once you,
Yeah.
on the M16, it'll actually do it for you. Some
Yeah,
weapons
dude,
will do that, like
You just slap
Pistols-
that mag release and
pistols in
especially 'cause the
particular.
charging handle on the M16 is in a really bad spot
Mhm.
to do quick reloads with. So basically, you just slap the new mag in there, whack the side of the gun with your whole hand, and then you're good to go.
Mhm.
Yeah, I watched a guy the other day using an M1A modified that
Mhm.
fires full automatic and was
So that's a full M14.
magazine loaded. And he did something. This is a team operator that was doing this video. And he had the weapon up, and once he loaded it, he actually reached with his left hand and then started firing.
That's got a thumb, right?
Because
Mm.
everything's on the right side. And he
Yep.
did not want to lose sight. He wanted to stay on sight. So he kept aiming, and he did the mag dump, load, reached to the right, did the release, and started firing again. And boy, that was a 308 too. And that thing is so well weighted, man. There was recoil, but nothing like what I would expect from a 308.
Yeah, that's a custom made one because the original M14s, the reason they were not in service for very long is they were full automatic if you wanted them to be, and everyone basically realized that thing is not controllable.
You can't
at
hold
all.
that thing down, man. It's gonna go.
Like
up.
anything beyond
like
like a
trying
2 or
to-
3 round burst, it's going to be in the sky.
Mhm.
It's like the BAR was a 30-06.
But it was so
You know,
heavy that it
and-
was actually controllable.
But because it was heavy, you were able to control how it was firing. And they're fairly fucking accurate. They're really good. Let me see.
The big ass fucking rifle.
Yep. Well, it's almost like one of the, every now and again we'd have somebody from, procurement or something like that come down and ask like what we'd want to see on newer variants of our weaponry. And somebody was saying like, oh, well, we wish you would make the Barrett a little lighter. It's like, and meanwhile, all the real grunts are like, no, you don't.
No, you don't.
The reason that thing is even as painful to shoot as it is because it's 28 pounds.
Unless you want to start shooting planes out of the sky, come on, man. What the hell?
Like, because the Barrett's great. I mean, because shoulder fired 50 cal, but you do not want that thing any lighter than it is.
No,
otherwise, thing's gonna knock you over.
Yeah, and I still, by the way, I've never had a chance to ever fire one. I've always wanted to fire one.
They are.
I've fired a Desert Eagle, but that is a different kind of 50 cal.
Yep, I still love that gun for being the world's only gas-operated pistol because it had to be.
Because it had to be, yep.
Because people had tried to make like recoil-operated like automags before, like somebody did like a 44 automag, and the gun just beats itself to death. The recoil impulse is just too heavy.
If I get to collecting guns, I've got a 9, but it's just because I'm a James Bond nut. I've got a Walther, but I would really like to get a 45 like I carried. I want to put together my entire military police uniform.
I have a 1911. They're great.
And yeah, dude, those guns are awesome. They're not accurate.
I carried one in the Army.
You're going down.
Because I was lucky that the armory we had still had a few left.
Yeah.
And so I carried as a combat medic.
When
that was
I
my
left,
primary weapon.
they were switching to the 9 and they were bringing in the Humvees instead of the Jeeps right after I left. The late 80s is when I got out. I got out in 86, and that's when they were making the big switch. That's when they switched from the piss pots to Kevlar. They made all those changes in the late 80s. So I actually served with all the stuff that was basically Vietnam War issue. Really?
Well, we did too, but that's because the Marine Corps is poor.
Yeah, right.
So we will just use it.
They get the hand-me-downs. They do. They get the hand-me-downs.
I think
they were in Vietnam.
Before you guys,
they were using weapons that were handed down, as well as fucking flak jackets from the Korean War.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Not to mention the helmets, the M1 helmets that they wore were the ones that were handed down from the Army from the Korean War.
I think that was their
You
revenge.
remember Hamburger Hill.
Because we were famous for stealing the Army's gear because they had better stuff than we did.
Right.
So in Korea, we actually got caught in the retreat from Chosin spray painting over Army serial numbers on the M26 Pershings because we didn't have any, but the Army did, and they left them at Chosin when they retreated. So we took them with us, and we're
that's
basically
called
like,
recon. It's not stealing.
Right.
Yeah,
that's not stealing. It's called recon.
Acquisition.
Yep. That is just
so
recon.
We basically one of the Army generals walking by a line of them, and we were spray painting over the Army serial numbers and spray painting Marine Corps ones on them instead, which was interesting because the Marine Corps did not have any M26 Pershings, but we did after that.
We stole gear all the time from other companies. If they left the locker unlocked, we go in there and just recon whatever we can find. Like
gear adrift is a gift.
Anybody need this? Oh, we got a crap load of canteens. Anybody need canteens?
Unlocked locker. If it weren't for you, there wouldn't be any thievery in this world.
I'm going to show a video real quick here. This is a Marine firing a fully automatic M1A.
That's not an M1A. That's a full-on M14.
You see how
that is the M1A. That is the modified one I'm talking about. That's not the M14. That is a modified M1A.
You see how far he was leaning forward into that, right?
Oh yeah.
So much that when the last burst, watch it again. Watch that last burst and how he falls forward. And fucking falling forward.
Yeah.
He leans so much into it.
Yeah, he's pretty much standing himself up on the butt of that rifle when he's firing.
That's a 308, man. And trust me, You fire that for a little bit, your shoulder's going to remind you later.
I was fixing to say that guy couldn't have been feeling good the next day after firing.
I mean,
that thing.
I remember like heavy shoot days with the M240, which is the belt fit, basically our replacement for the M60. And you know, your shoulder's friggin' sore the next day, and that's a belt-fed machine gun, so that's not nowhere near the recoil that's giving off.
Right.
Yeah, the M240, man. I'm looking at that thing right now.
I love that gun. It's the best machine gun ever designed.
Yeah, the Marines in particular love that fucking weapon. I was reading an article recently by a Marine saying this thing is one of the most tried and true machine guns you could ever have.
Yeah,
it's like automatic weapon.
If I was allowed to own one, I would save up the 15 grand and buy one. Can I afford to run it? No, but I'm gonna have one.
Where is it? Where is it? Oh, it's right there. This is fun for me. Yeah, I like my 60.
There you go.
Me on the seawall on Johnson Island with a 60. I liked my.
We actually did get to fire the 60s too for during training, and they're great guns.
Yeah,
they're not quite as refined as the 240 is, but they work real damn well.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
By the way, I think you will find this amusing that Pope, when I had not a confrontation, but an interesting conversation during training when somebody got in trouble for calling the M16 a gun. And so, the whole thing, you know what happened. But while this is being discussed with the sergeants, I just, as a squad leader, I get to stand near them and talk to them. And I said, I'm just curious, Drill Sergeant, are we not supposed to use the word gun with like machine gun? We just say machine? We get punished if we say machine gun? I didn't get a response. There was no verbal response. There was just this.
Glaring. Yeah.
And that looking away real quick is him getting some bearings so he doesn't die laughing while he's about to say what he's going to say.
Oh, man.
Never said anything to me, man. The sergeants just sort of just looked at me, both of them. Just looking at me like, basically, shut the fuck up.
Right?
Yeah, it's like, he has a weapon. What is it? It's a hand. Hand what? I don't want to get in trouble for saying gun.
It's a pistol.
Drill Sergeant, put the fear of God in me about ever using the word gun. So.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a movie about Vietnam without torrential rain.
Yeah.
Oh, especially if it's monsoon season, And it was just raining all the time. And it wasn't like rain. It was just water being poured down on you from the side.
Yeah, describing monsoon season in Vietnam as a rainstorm is like describing a tornado as a windy day.
Windy day. I remember I had some idiot try to act like I was woke when I called a giant desert sandstorm as a haboob. And he says, that's not an American word, use the American word. I said, the American word for that is haboob. We adopted that in the military because you cannot describe a giant fucking wall of sand as a sandstorm. That is not what it is. This is a giant wall.
Incapable of conveying the amount of shit.
Why did you call it just that? A giant wall of sand. It's like, because you sound stupid if you say that. It's called a haboob.
Yeah, which just like those drainage ditches those drainage ditches you'll see on the side of the road in like real flat areas. That's called a wadi. That's just the name for it now.
Yep. A lot of things people don't know that a lot of things in American culture came from the military, came from other countries that those soldiers served in.
Yep.
It's like nobody ever called it an FAG cigarette, an FAG in the United States until after First World War.
Yep.
Right.
And hell, I mean, everybody refers to the fuel cans we use now as jerry cans. Because it was initially a German design that everyone copied because it was way better than anything anyone else used.
Right.
So those are just jerry cans from now until the end of time. Whether there's still a jerry can or not, they will fuel cans in the military will always be called jerry cans from now on.
So here we see they got the drops from those helicopters.
Yeah, and it was almost an insubordination because the brigadier, he wasn't adamant. Nobody's going out, and the pilot says, "Well, I can drop it. I am commander of my own ship, and I make the calls on the battlefield." The brigadier
That's
says,
the same thing that happened.
Yeah, and they said, "You're not in the battlefield." Say, "I will be in 10 minutes." that's insubordination.
Mm-hmm.
But see, that's one of those situations where insubordination, it depends on the outcome. If something bad happens, and you will be taking responsibility for it. But
and they know that when they do it.
But if they win, well, now you're getting
and they do that in this movie in 2 separate occasions or 3 occasions. Okay, it's a gamble.
Yep.
And Major Bruce Crandall did the exact same thing with Hal Moore's account of the battle at just forgot the name of it. Give me a second. Oh my God.
Yadring.
Yadring. Thank you. It's like I was drawing a blank. And the Yadring Valley, and which is also flat terrain, by the way. He went in there against orders, and he was pissing off other pilots because he was making them look bad. And it led to a physical confrontation. And that really did happen when he threatened that other pilot.
Yep.
I will fucking end you, is what he said.
You talk about that moment Kinnear has in
when he tells that guy, he goes, "I will fucking end you."
Fucking end
you. So I went to the original book and found it in there, and it's like, holy shit, he really did that.
Yeah.
He threatened that guy, and he called him a coward to his face.
Yes. His call sign was Snake Shit, I think.
Yeah.
Right. They called him Snake in the movie, yeah.
Snake Shit. Because nobody could fly low.
Call me Snake.
That's one of those moments where you're either getting a medal or you're going to the brig, one or the other.
Maybe both. You never know.
Maybe both. It has happened. I mean, there's a reason Chesty Puller was famously quoted as saying, "Take me to the brig. I want to see the real Marines."
Yeah. Damn Skippy.
I mean, let's face it.
Best warriors out there are troublemakers.
We're all enlisted. Every good enlisted man has at least one NJP in his jacket. It's like we've all gotten in trouble for something.
Yeah.
We would have, because you had different levels of Article 15.
Right.
And if you can have platoon grade, company grade. Company grade is when you're in trouble. Unit grade, you are definitely going to court martial. And but a lot of guys have, platoon grade. Article 15.
I'm with you, Pope. You haven't really served in the military unless you've got one. I got dropped from specialist to PFC for about half a year because of one.
I got Article 15 because of that incident where we sent guys out on a recon mission from the barracks because we were in lockdown to rappel out the windows of the barracks to go to local vending machines and get as much fucking junk food and soda as they could in the duffel bags and bring it back. But when it was all said and done, the senior commander, full-bird colonel, was like, I'm not going to go any further with this because what you guys did, no matter how wrong it is seen, was absolutely a military operation. You did it by the book. Everything you did was exactly the way you would do it if you were in a situation.
Yeah, I think I managed never to get actually caught doing anything, but I got like $100 taken out of my paycheck because they could prove I knew about something and didn't say anything. So they were just like,
Yeah, you can lose pay pretty quickly.
yeah, it was just like, we can't prove you did this, but we know you knew about it because it was all of your boys. So here you go.
I just didn't show up to work because I was too drunk from the night before. That's how mine.
Oh my God. Technically it's not a breach, but it's a backdoor joke. So
yep.
He should get a backdoor video for that.
Okay, let me see. Let me fetch for one.
Awkward silence.
Okay. Here we have this one.
Maybe we only need like 3 stink bombs. You better give me the other ones.
Okay, I drop these 3 stink bombs, smell out the joint, and slip out the back door.
There you go. This is the scene where we finally have the request for the APCs. If I lose my APCs, and this is a command fight here between these two guys.
Between the brigadier and the colonel, because the colonel he was kind of a fuck up, but he woke up to the situation.
Well, he ends up being the guy standing up for them. He says they are not dead yet.
And the brigadier is, yes, let them die. I need to protect the base. Well, what he really wants to protect is his own ass, but
yeah, that's usually what officers mean when it's like, oh, I need to protect this. Otherwise known as, this is my real responsibility. I'm not taking a risk.
And there's no question that he was a fuck up in the beginning with having him do what they did. But in the end, he was there, wanted to be there for them. And I thought it's interesting how they flipped those two characters.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially, I think once he realizes the position his unit is in is his fault.
Yes.
That's when he kind of flips over and is just like, no, I'm not letting my guys die for something I did. So,
and this guy gets smoked. The guy up on that machine gun, he gets smoked too.
Gunners are always vulnerable. I don't care how good their shielding is. Their head is above everything else. So
and not even that. It's just that everybody is shooting at us because we train in the infantry. If you identify where the machine gun is, shut him the hell down.
That's it. I mean, it's like the quarterback on a football field. The entire defense's job is to stop that one guy, right? You know.
Yep, pretty much. It's like he is putting out more firepower than the rest of that squad combined. So shut him up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't envy any gunner, man. On a Humvee, on an APC, any of them. I mean, my stepson was a gunner on a Humvee, a military police rig, and yeah, I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
And especially at night, the machine gun's real easy to spot.
Hello, the silhouette, baby. What do you see? There's the head right there. Shoot it.
Well, not even the silhouette, just the fact that there is tracers coming out of that position at a really rapid clip.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I got to tell you, there's something that even though you're not saved, there's something that makes you feel saved when armor shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I can get inside that thing and have a chance, right?
Well, it's a big hunk of metal that came in shooting. So yeah.
And at this point, you know, even an RPG couldn't penetrate. About the only thing that would hurt an M113 is anything with serious armor piercing, like a 50 cal might be able to break through.
RPGs, those weren't common during Vietnam. They were the old
RPGs weren't the way they were made in Vietnam weren't as good. They didn't damage the M60s or the APCs. Like 1-2 hits wouldn't do the damage. But if you get repeated hits on that armor from RPGs, that's how they do it. They wear it down. Today's RPGs are different, and they will do more damage than what the RPGs we had.
But the ones that they had back then, if they got lucky and hit a track, they'd screw it up. Or
Cracks are always
the
a
fuel
weakness,
tank
weak
or
point.
something. But
Absolutely.
yeah. Mhm.
You take out a wheel or the track itself, yeah, they're fucked.
Yeah, and the funny part was, like, especially during my era, the 113s weren't all that well armed. Like, any kind of armor that we had showing up was at the very least be an AAV-7 with a Mark 19 and a 50 cal in the turret. Or if we were very lucky, we had an Abrams show up, and then we're just kind of looking at the bad guys like, yeah, you're in trouble now.
Mm-hmm.
Man, this guy looks so much like Neil McDonald.
Yeah, he does it.
Kinda,
The
yeah.
blue eyes.
Look at him.
He's a damn good actor, man.
He really is. Not that he hasn't been in some bad movies. Anyone remember that Warcraft movie from a few years ago?
Oh God.
Oh yeah.
I didn't see it.
I did, unfortunately. My
You didn't
girlfriend
miss
at the time
anything,
was
brother.
a huge WoW nerd, so we had to go see it. And you know what?
I've
It was
never
visually
played
impressive.
WoW, and it's horrible. to believe
It
that.
was visually impressive. That was about the only good thing I have to say about it.
Yep.
And he did okay. Other than that movie was absolutely god awful.
You didn't miss anything, Martin. You don't need to worry about that one. You really don't.
If anything, you were the lucky one.
We sacrificed so you didn't have to.
Okay. If you forget the past, you're doomed to repeat it.
Right? You're doomed to repeat it. You can't forget it. Can't forget it.
It's like anyone in this movie, anyone around here remember Dragon Ball Evolution, that live action DBZ movie they did back in the day?
No.
I remember of his existence, but I didn't see that one either.
I did, because DBZ was a huge thing at the time. And I was like, oh yeah, cool, we'll go see it. And oh my god, I really wish I hadn't. Possibly the worst movie I have ever seen.
Well,
Okay.
there's always the Eternal, so.
Not even one of those movies that's so bad you can make fun of. It's just bad.
I just saw something that lent credibility to the military side of the show. The commanding officer over the map didn't have glasses on, and then he put his Horner and Buddy Holly's on. I was like, yes, okay, there it is. Anybody that's ever been in the military has worn those glasses. Anybody that's a military brat has worn those glasses.
Yep. The BCGs.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know, that means birth control glasses.
Birth
You would
control
never
glasses,
get away with
boys
those
and
on your
girls.
face.
Hell yeah, because you're never getting laid wearing those damn things. Not unless your name is Buddy Holly.
Pretty much.
Oh, me. But yeah, when I was in, we were pretty much using the same equipment that they're using in the Vietnam era, the M16s, Jeeps. We were still using Jeeps, still using piss pots. They hadn't switched to Kevlar yet.
Yep.
I guess I'm just saying I'm an old bastard. What's funny is, though, see, Gerry started his military career after I did. He was a little bit older, but he's actually a couple of years older than I am. Actually about a year and a half older than I am. He's coming up on a milestone birthday pretty soon. But yeah, they hadn't switched over to the new the stuff you served with, Pope, the Humvees and the Kevlar and all that stuff.
Well, the crazy part with being in the during the GWAT is our equipment was changing all the time.
Yeah.
Because even between the deployments, we had changed out our armor vests because we realized that the older OTVs weren't really working that well anymore. We needed something a little lighter, a little more mobile. So when we actually finally did deploy, we were using plate carriers, which don't have any of the soft armor, but it's basically just a hanger for your front and back plate, and then you can strap all of your mag pouches and stuff like that right to the armor.
Right.
Which I actually still have one sitting right behind me.
That picture I was just showing you, me with the 60 on the seawall, I'm wearing Vietnam issue jungle fatigues.
Yep.
We were one of the last units in the U.S. Army that were issued those on purpose. I mean, it wasn't because I had that uniform and I was showing off. Everybody on the island was issued that stuff. Yeah.
Well, I mean, especially for an island in the Pacific, they work.
Yeah, it's perfect. Oh, it's the most comfortable uniform I ever wore. It was so great. Right down to the boots with the green canvas sides.
Now, I was lucky
the air
when we
holes
came
on the
in,
side.
we were already using the tan boots, so I never had to shine them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So and I swear to God, I don't know what the material of those Marpat uniforms was made out of, but once you actually broke them in, they were like a big pair of pajamas. They were the most comfortable uniform.
Really?
Ever.
Wow. Well, yeah, my favorite uniform I ever wore was those slanted pocket Vietnam issue.
Yeah, and the funny part was we were not allowed to wear our our camis when we were overseas because those were not fire retardant enough. So we had to wear flight suits.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Because a lot of guys were getting burned pretty badly.
Okay, guys, we have a question here.
I've asked this before. How safe is Army issued body armor? I asked
Pretty good
Tom
stuff
about
today.
Police armor. I really don't know. I've never faced a shot fired in anger myself. I served during the Cold War. That's a question for Pope. He's the one that faced gunfire, not me.
Our body armor is pretty damn good. Even when I was in, it will take 2 or 3 shots from an AK before you start getting penetration. It is not. You are still going to feel the shot. You're going to feel like you got kicked in the chest by a damn mule, but you won't have a hole in you. So there's that.
My stepson to this day has a bad back because he took small arms fire right in the back while he was taking a piss in a urinal.
I actually took a
well,
shot.
the other thing that can happen if you're hit directly in the chest, center mass, there's the potential of actual heart stoppage.
Yep.
Oh, God, a cardiac thump?
Cardiac shock.
Good God, man. Wow.
And I actually took
compresses. If the heart's expanding and it gets compressed while it's expanding, can actually cause you to go into cardiac arrest. And so there's always a risk with being hit in armor. I do know this, and I've told people this, that you're trained infantry style to fight. You don't turn sideways. You aim your weapon straight out and you walk face toward.
Yeah,
because
you're presenting your
full armor doesn't protect you here. It protects you here. So you're trained to walk forward. And it's weird looking, but you'll see it because they replicate it very well in video games showing how the guys walk. We were also taught to walk knee down, not from the thigh.
Yep.
But from the knee, because it leveled your aim. So you're taught to it's almost like holding your knees together and just moving your feet. And but now we've learned that that may not be the truth. So they're actually doing some new training right now, teaching you to walk even more differently. And so they always discover something new.
Yeah, and tactics change, and movement stuff changes as the equipment changes. Because obviously, like especially me being with a front and back plate, it's almost like a turtle shell. So I can't bend at the torso like you're normally able to, like kind of hunch down and get behind your rifle. I can bend. I'm like almost like a GI Joe. I can rotate at the waist and bend at and bend at the waist. I cannot bend at the torso at all.
Right.
And yes, most things you do in the military are very bad on your knees.
No doubt. No doubt. That's why so many guys get out on medicals. I mean, I can't tell you how many guys I know with bad knees got out on medicals, man.
Especially anybody in the airborne. I mean, you're playing patty cake with the earth at 35 miles an hour.
Come on, man. Yeah.
And that's if everything goes right.
Right.
Like I know a guy who actually had a chute malfunction, and he's now 3 inches shorter than he used to be.
Woof.
Because his spine compressed to hell.
Oof. That's insane. It's like he survived that shit.
Yeah, well, he was absolutely fucked up for a long, long time. Because, I mean, well, you had a chute malfunction. Fortunately, it didn't fail to open entirely. It just got kind of tangled around itself and only opened part way. So
yeah, it's the joints. To Tim's point, it's the joints that take a pounding.
Yeah.
If you're a ground pounder, there's a reason why they call it that for a reason.
I mean, in our case, our mission load was 110 pounds. So you're wearing half of another person on top of your normal body weight.
Yeah.
And then doing really, really strenuous shit with it.
Yep.
And there you go, Joe. There's your 1911 right there.
Hell yeah, man. There it is. Love it. I'd love to get one of those things.
And it seems like the Australians, because seen them use those things. Like it seems like the Australians were just kind of shopping around and taking the best weapons they could from anybody for what they could do, for what they were doing.
That thing's not accurate, but if you hit something with it, it's going down. Doesn't matter if you hit it in the big toe, because the bullet tumbles when it comes out of there. It's like getting hit with a baseball bat, man.
And it's just such a massive slug too. It will just stop you.
Yep.
You're talking about the 45 ACP, right?
Yep.
It doesn't tumble. It's called hydraulic effect. What it is it is a subsonic round, and the subsonic round collects more gases in front of it, and it was designed specifically to knock down or spin somebody. The way they designed it with such a low yield of gunpowder was specifically to deal with what happened in the Philippines with the Moors when they were jumping out of trees with machetes tied into their hands. They'd jump out of the tree with a machete, and if you shot them, it didn't stop them. They'd still come down. They'd be dead, but they'd kill you.
You had to redirect them. Yeah.
And so they were like, we need a weapon that'll do that. And so the 1911 wasn't created fast enough, but they started using 45s in combat for just to deal with those, the pistol, because they were the Colt 45 is primarily. I'm trying to remember, was the Bulldog a 45? I can't remember. There was another foreign 45. And
the Webley was 455.
Webley, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. They would use pistols that had enough of the power to do it. So they started handing those out. But when World War I came about, they had the 1911, and it was used by a lot of the soldiers. My grandfather carried one.
Yeah. The one I had was a 45, guys.
We have another question from Kingsport.
Look, man.
Look, guys, their mission has changed. When I was in, no, we didn't respect them at all. They were weekend warriors.
The NG got the nickname No Goods. Is one form for it. But I actually signed up in the National Guard first. And what they do in the military is they do what's referred to as a backdoor draft, is they like to utilize National Guard and Army Reserves to send guys. That's why you had so many reservists in the war, because the regular army were permanent party and they were being sent up to Europe and shit, while the Nasty Guard and the reserves were being used. In fact, we have a reserve unit, Marine Reserve unit, that served in combat in Afghanistan.
I mean, every Marine Reserve unit served in combat over there. The difference between the Army Reserve and the Marines is Army Reserve units are kind of like attachments to an already existing unit, whereas the Marine Corps,
which is why not everybody gets sent.
Yeah, the reserve is the Marine Reserve is the 4th Marine Division. Like they are their complete own TO with their, like if we ever called the full thing up, they would be the 4th Marine Division reactivated.
When I was in the National Guard, I got out in '89. 2 years later, we were in Desert Shield, and that's when everything changed. That's when they started activating National Guard units and reserve units.
Well, because it used to be back like during Vietnam that the National Guard did not deploy ever.
No.
Because you were for the National Guard.
Around Desert Storm, that's when it started. That's when they started utilizing the Guard and reserve units as troops in combat situations. Yeah.
Basically anything they could do to avoid having a draft. Well,
so to answer your question,
well, it hits the backdoor draft.
We didn't respect them, but now we do. They are part of the guys that get deployed a lot.
Yeah, National Guard doesn't have its own training anymore since the 60s. They began training with the U.S. Army. So when they go in, there may be U.S. They may be National Guard, but they're U.S. Army National Guard. They are fully trained by the U.S. Army Department of Defense, even though once they are pushed off to their state, at any time there can be a request for them to be activated.
Yeah.
And be used. And that's happened a lot.
And they realize that going in now. I tell you, around the time of Desert Storm, like I said, I got out 2 years before that happened, and I was glued to the set watching what was going on in those 45 days. in Iraq because everybody I was in with was there. The engineering battalion that I was in the Guard after my active military police days was in Iraq, right there. And it was an engineering battalion, the 527th, here in North Louisiana. They're now a transportation battalion, but at the time they were engineers. And yeah, I was glued to the set because all my buddies were over there. You know, I missed it by 2 years.
And we respect what the Guard and reserves do, but I mean, especially inter-service, we all have nicknames for each other. Like we always refer to the National Guard as the Nasty Girls. But
everybody has a nickname for them. Nasty Guard, No Goods. You know, November Golf.
In fact, when the lockdown started with the unspecified virus of unknown origin, like some states were deploying their Guard to make sure people were staying inside and all that. Man. And like me and all the other Marine vets were joking, like it's like because me and a couple other Marines lived in the same neighborhood, so we'd all just go over each other's house and just be sitting on the porch drinking beers or whatever. And they're like, "What are we gonna do if the Guard shows up?" It's like, so it's like, did you tell those guys to go inside? Yes, Sergeant. What did they do? Threw a beer can at me and called me a boot.
They laughed at me.
They threw a beer can at me and called me a boot.
Asked us if we were on our 2-week summer drill.
I think my favorite story from that period, though, was apparently a couple of, and had to be old veterans because we're the only ones who know how to do this, just jumped in one of their Humvees and basically drove off with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
So how did you guys get your Humvee stolen? We don't know. Meanwhile, you see two grizzled old vets just like
right.
They'll be fine.
So just to let you know here, we are at the memorial that they put up there. That's what this photo is of right here when they put it up for the 18 Australian New Zealand soldiers.
Let it roll because there's a closer take.
Okay.
And there were 250 enemy soldiers killed in combat. So I thought it was great that they did this. It was erected there in Vietnam, and I'm curious if it's still there.
It probably is. Regardless of being a communist regime, the Vietnamese government was pretty respectful to a lot of the memorials that got put up during the war.
Oh, I like this. They got actual pictures of the guys.
Yeah, they have the guys who they portrayed.
Very cool.
Some of the guys didn't make it.
I think the company lost 18 soldiers.
It said 18 soldiers died.
Which, given the situation they're in, the fact that they only lost 18 is amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's something that reminds me of, the way Australians and Americans kind of fight, and the British too, fight the same way. But even they will say, like Marines in particular, are some scary hombres in combat. And it's just, there's something that happens with the intensity of a fight that our cultures, especially Australia, the Irish, populate that country, and they love a fight. And they will just dig in and not give up. And you'll see crazy numbers like that, where we suffer casualties, but then we look at the number of enemy killed compared to us is insane. It doesn't add up.
Like I mentioned it earlier, the battle at Cho's Inn, like at the end of the fighting there, the Marines had lost 827 guys, which isn't a lot, but the Chinese suffered between 10 and 15,000 dead.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they drove us off that ground, but they paid for it.
Right.
They bled for that fucking land.
I still say the Aussies repel like crazy, man.
I learned Australian repel. Yeah, I learned that from my sergeant.
Nuts.
I was scared doing it the first time. I'm like, and he says, just control the tension and just walk down the wall as fast as you can. I did it. I did it a bunch of times, and I'm like, holy crap! I don't know, man. I just don't know. That's a crazy way to go, bro.
I'm telling you, that's a crazy way to do it, man. Oh.
On today's episode of Australia, not like the rest of us.
Not like the rest of us. That's right.
There's that poor son of a bitch. History was not kind to him. Definitely not kind to him.
Yeah.
Okay, look at that. The memorial is in Australia.
Oh, is it?
Oh, I thought that was in Vietnam.
I think they made one in Vietnam as well, but
yeah,
they may have moved it after the war.
This one is that photo is in Vietnam. And this was done, I think, in '69.
Yeah, that was when
the battle took place in '66. Which, by the way, I would point out again, if it was, later, like after '68, the Viet Cong wouldn't have been part of that, because between the Australians and the U.S., we slaughtered the Viet Cong. They were gone. But after the Tet Offensive, they were done. They didn't exist anymore.
Yeah, they pretty much had done everything they were going to do. It was all NVA from then on.
Well, we killed almost all of them. We slaughtered them. It was the Tet Offensive. When they talk about the Tet Offensive, and they talk without knowledge, it's like, I hate it when I hear a fucking lefty start talking about the Tet Offensive. They kicked our ass. I'm like, no, that's not what happened at all. We slaughtered them. It was a slaughter.
Us. We didn't expect.
Yeah, they caught us with our pants down. But only in one place, at our embassy. Everything else, they fucked up. And in country, they launched 24 hours early because of miscommunication. They didn't have radio. They have radio. So they would send messages. And if the message didn't get to them or was misunderstood, you get shit like what happened with the Tet Offensive. And the Tet Offensive ended with the complete loss of the Viet Cong. They were done. They didn't exist anymore. We killed them. After that, we were just fighting the North Vietnamese.
Is that the list of the lost and their
Yes.
agents?
Yeah.
Because after the battle, people disappeared, and they weren't able to find everybody. And it's depressing when you think about it. Because you want to bury somebody. It's, we talked about this, Anima and I did, and I said, every cop has taught me there's no such thing as closure. When you see people being punished for the crime they committed against somebody, the victim's family, isn't getting closure. They may getting some form of satisfaction and seeing justice, but there is no such thing as closure. And it's the same thing with combat. It's just, it's why, soldiers bring it home with them, and some leave a piece of themselves there, and sometimes they bring a piece of the battlefield home with them. And there's no such thing as closure. And it's one of the hardest things that you have to learn in this life, because most people don't know that, because they've never had to go through a personal trauma. They go, well, don't you want closure? It's like, how are you going to get closure? It's not going to stop it having had happened. It still happened. It still happened. So it doesn't go away just because you end it. There's no closure. It's always with you.
Well,
that is a myth created by fancy people, because that shit really doesn't exist.
He needed closure. They needed closure. It's like,
you don't ever forget, man.
The fuck is closure? What are you talking about?
Okay, let me show. Tim sent me a picture of this.
Aha!
Oh, okay. So they actually put it in the museum.
Yep.
Looks like they pulled it out of the ground.
That's the original. So they took it out of the ground and brought it home. Okay.
Probably when they left that position, whenever they were rotated out, they took that with them. Probably so the Vietnamese wouldn't get it.
Right.
But here it was in country when they put it up in 1969. And again, if you are interested in reading about this battle, you have 3 books that I know of: The Battle of Long Tan, The Company Commander's Story by Harry Smith, Peter Fitzsimmons, The Battle of Long Tan, and The Battle of Long Tan by David W. Cameron are 3 major books, historical books about the battle. Yeah. So, but it was a really good film. I was
Really
floored by it.
well.
I got emotional watching it. Very emotional watching the film. And it shocked me when the kid got shot. It really did. Because I know he was talking about hope, but there was this thing that just said, you know, here's this guy, he's finally learned to be a soldier, stop being a fuck up, and fucking gets nailed in the head.
Just a waste,
Like,
huh?
God damn it.
Yeah.
Man, to me the best part of the movie is when the kid he learns that the major ordered a fire mission on the position of the 11th platoon. Of course, he didn't know that it was the sergeant of the 11th platoon that asked for it. And then he goes to confront the major, and it's raining, but even in the rain, you can see that the major is destroyed. And when they are looking at each other's eyes and they are yelling to each other, and then the kids stop. The kids sees what is happening inside the major. And they stop arguing, and the kids go. That scene is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to watching it.
To
One
what?
of these days. I said I look forward to watching it one of these days.
It's really
It's a must see. It really is.
It's just hard for me to fit it in because Foxy doesn't do war movies. I have to do it when she's not around. And seeing as she works at home now, it's kind of hard to do.
Yeah, it's like yesterday. I needed to watch the film yesterday, but Anima didn't want to watch it because she's going through some stuff right now.
Mhm.
And then she kept me all day. And then I'm like, you know, you can watch it once I go to bed. I said, I go to bed when you go to bed because you stay up so late now.
Right.
I said, so when am I going to get to watch the movie? I said, you're making it difficult for me.
Mm-hmm.
And but I understand when she doesn't want to watch one of the films because it's emotionally taxing.
Look, man,
But
you're blessed that she even wants to watch a war movie. Most girls don't watch them. I mean, you know. But look, when my stepson, this guy right here, David, went to war, she had actually quit smoking for 2 years, and she used to wake up with a virgin paper. She had to have, anybody touched her paper before the first thing in the morning, you got the wrath. You know what I'm saying? But 2 things changed when her son went to Iraq. 1, she started smoking again. Number 2, she stopped watching the news and quit the paper. She didn't want to know what was going on. She really did. Yeah,
my brother Stephen, when the Gulf War broke up, when I was in, he was getting triggered as a Vietnam veteran by all the news and the combat footage that was just coming over live.
Yeah,
you know.
That was an interesting conflict in that you can. Well, it was for the first time in human history you were watching a war live
in real time. Yeah, that's when CNN made its name, was Desert Storm. And they did some good journalism there. They really did.
Back when CNN was an actual journalistic outlet.
Yes, back when they were a news organization.
In fact,
I think HBO made a movie about them being in Baghdad when all that shit broke out. I think Michael Keaton was in it. Do you remember the movie I'm talking about?
I think this one.
It was an HBO film, and I believe Michael Keaton was in it. And it was about CNN in Baghdad when all that shit broke loose.
They pissed us off.
Mm-hmm.
They pissed us off because Wolf Blitzer and that other dude were putting themselves front and center on this war. And it's like, man, you're not stars of the fucking war, but they acted like it. And that pissed us off with CNN.
Yeah.
I'll tell you who we loved at the time, though. because he was on Armed Forces radio at the time, was Rush Limbaugh.
Right.
I thought it was funny that we actually used Geraldo Rivera's ego against him. We basically embedded him with the Marines that were kind of like the blocking force for the push into Kuwait. And basically, like, he was like, oh, well, we're right on the front lines. This is where the action is going to happen. And the Iraqis believed him. They figured the Marines, the 1st Marine Division, was going to be the ones to push through. And so they really heavily enforced that side of the line. And then when the Army Cav came rolling through the desert, they were completely caught off guard.
The name of the movie I'm talking about is Michael Keaton and Helena Bonham Carter. You know her from half of Tim Burton's movies.
Yep.
Live from Baghdad is the name.
Yeah. I remember that movie now. Yeah. I think I've seen it.
I'll probably never watch it because I'm not a big fan of CNN for doing that.
Yeah, I'm just saying it was, to Pope's point, it's the first time we really saw a war live on television. I mean,
and I think it's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, wrong, you know,
because it causes soldiers to fight differently.
Yeah,
and it causes you to wage war differently.
Well, you remember, wasn't it Geraldo that got in trouble for giving away troop positions?
Well, that's why they embedded him with the 1st Marine Division. Is basically we had to change our entire operations plan because he couldn't keep his mouth shut.
Yeah, they kicked him out of there. Yeah, I remember that. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which he's very lucky he's dealing with a country as nice as the United States.
Right?
Most countries,
it'd be treason,
and
and he'd be locked up. I mean, good Lord, man. Yikes.
Ever since, basically, it started with Korea,
mm-hmm.
where, and it got worse by Vietnam, to where command became cowardice. Very, very cowardly.
Because you knew anything you did was going to be on the nightly news back home.
Yeah, and you're going to get judged by the public.
Mm-hmm.
And during World War II, we didn't give a shit about that. You know, it's about winning this fucking war and getting it done and ending it as quickly as possible.
Right.
You know, kill as many of them as possible and get the fuck out of here. That's why the firebombing of Dresden, you know, there are things that took place. I mean, you go back to the Civil War, the burning of Atlanta.
Yeah.
It didn't have to happen. Tecumseh Sherman did it on purpose because he wanted the people of Georgia to know, you're funding this war. You get to say what happens, and you didn't stop it. So we're going to burn Atlanta. That would be considered a war crime today.
Oh, he's absolutely a war criminal. Like, and a lot of the things, like, especially if you grow up in the South or live in the South, you learn a lot about what happened during that war that the North should not be proud of.
No, but I'll tell you, Sherman said it in a statement, speech that he gave. It's the same speech where he said war is hell, and the emphasis was on the is. War is hell. Was that if you want to win a war against an enemy, you must be willing to do worse than the enemy.
Yep.
If you don't have the conviction to do that, you're not trying to win.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the problems we ran into in Vietnam and Afghanistan and Iraq to a lesser
big
extent,
time.
Is we were not willing to win. We were fighting to not lose. We were not willing to do what it took to achieve.
You can't do that. That is a losing battle.
Yep. It's like playing a football game and only playing defense. Sooner or later, you are going to lose.
Yep. They're going to score eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I've always said that the media should be kept away from military operations. They shouldn't be allowed to embed.
They should be. Yeah.
The only people allowed to embed should be military reporters that are in the military.
The story has to be controlled. I mean,
and if you really have
come
to,
out later,
photographers.
You know.
Well, once they started creating narratives, one of the biggest lies ever given was the report by Walter Cronkite from Hue City. The Tet Offensive was over. It was over. It was over. The battle was over. All those soldiers behind him were sitting because nothing was happening. And yet when he released it to the United States, he hedged the story to make it look like we had our asses handed to us. And on top of that, the special effects people, when they got the film, added the sound of gunfire and explosions in the background.
Yep, like that was the moment we pretty much.
I know people that were there when it happened. Were there, saw him give the report. There was no battle taking place. It was done.
And him saying the words, the Vietnam War is now unwinnable. That pretty much ended our chances of winning that war, because that turned the entire.
This is when the media steps in and starts to guide the narrative. And they were doing that with the Vietnam War in a way that was horrendous. And what pisses me off is when people don't understand why allies were pulled into it. We were pulled into it because there was a treaty that we were involved in the signing of. And if we didn't do what we did, we would have betrayed the South Vietnamese.
Yep.
And we won the war physically. We won the war.
All the battles.
But then the guys that were in charge of the purse strings choked the money and forced us to pull out, and to where we couldn't enforce the new treaty, the Paris peace talks. That was where we had kicked the shit out of them so much that they showed up. The North Vietnamese showed up to the peace talks because they wanted an end to this war. And we said, you want to end this war? This is what's going to happen. You're going to sign this treaty. You're going to agree to not invade the South. You're going to obey the treaty. And the U.S. is going to be there to make sure you do. That's all we're going to do. We're going to be there for police use only, to make sure that they obeyed the treaty that was signed.
Now know this, boys.
Then our Congress defunded the war. And we were forced to pull out, like abandon the country.
That's one of the worst moments in U.S. history. If you ask me.
2 million people were murdered.
Yep.
By the communists, mostly the Khmer Rouge. 2 million people. And they overran the South Vietnam. And then finally they turned somewhat friendly to us again later. And there's a McDonald's in Ho Chi Minh City now.
Yep.
A fucking McDonald's in Vietnam.
Well, and especially, after the Cold War ended, I think, first of all, a lot of the communist nations either stopped being communist entirely or toned it way down. If you notice, Cuba got real quiet after the Soviet Union went away.
Cuba's like, oh wait, what? They're gone? Okay.
What? They're gone?
We're cool.
Yeah, it's like when this kid's talking shit to you because his big brother's standing right behind him and he knows you're not going to hit him.
And the big brother steps aside?
Yeah, and then he turns around and his brother's not there anymore. It's like, yeah, what now? Oh, yeah, we didn't mean any of that. We're cool, man, right?
Yeah.
And also, Vietnam is under threat from China pretty much constantly now. So, which people don't talk about that war. Right after we left Vietnam in 1975, the Chinese invaded from the north and started trying to take over North Vietnam and incorporate them like they did Tibet. And that didn't go. That went about as well for them as our war in Vietnam did.
Something about Vietnam and Afghanistan. People can never hold the ground too long.
We debate that constantly of, is Afghanistan or Vietnam the all-time champion of hippity hoppity get off my property?
Right.
By the way, I read what you said, Kingsport Cal. It's kind of what he said, but not why he said it. What he actually said was, if I could save the Union and not have to free the slaves, I would do it.
Yeah, people
but
forget
he knew that there was no way. He said, if that was an option on the table, I would consider it. Didn't say he would do it. He would consider it. But in the end, he knew that wasn't an option. And he knew that no American should be enslavement. It shouldn't exist. Owning another person is just morally wrong.
Not if you're going to have a free country.
Damn Skippy.
You can't.
That's why, right from the very beginning, there were threats of rebellion against Jefferson's. And Jefferson was a slave owner. Jefferson adding that included slaves, that liberty. And
things people forget
Southern
about
states said that they would not sign it if that was kept in there. So they had to alter the wording.
Well, at the time,
He's
it was
a walking
necessary to the South to have that because their entire
economy was built on
agriculture.
Yeah, good Lord, yeah.
So it would have been cutting their own throats to join a new nation.
Yeah, and the weird thing, though, is like, once again, I got to point this out. Both George Washington and Thomas Jefferson were slave owners. And yet they were very thoughtful, progressive men who helped form this nation. And Thomas Jefferson was a person who wanted to free the slaves, yet held slaves. And I'm just like, how can you have slaves? And
there's actually a very good legal reason for it. He was not allowed to sell the slaves, to sell his own slaves, because the way slaves were owned under law.
You were accountable for them. Actually, you were legally accountable for.
Well, not only that, they didn't belong to you personally; they belonged to your estate. So, if you owed money on your estate, like say you still had a mortgage or whatever on it, you could not sell your slaves
because they belonged to the note holder. Yeah. So
you're totally since right. Jefferson owed money on Monticello, he could not legally sell his slaves. So I believe he would have if he could.
I do believe that was his intention from the beginning, and it nearly led to an early revolution between the states.
And the only reason they didn't do it is because they realized that if there was a division at all between the colonies, the British would be right back, and we would be right back where we started.
And do you know who the main state was that had a problem with it, beef with it? Carolina.
I forget who it was.
Carolina.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Why doesn't that surprise me?
The delegate from South Carolina does not like what you're saying, sir. Fucking Carolina, man. Georgia had issues with it too, but the weird thing is that a lot of people don't know this, is that especially in Louisiana, there were free black families and that were also slave owners.
Yep.
In Louisiana.
Yep.
They came to America as free men and owned slaves. So it's
in Africa, it was a common practice.
There are no white slavers in Africa. There were no white slavers in Africa.
No.
It was always tribal. It was one group versus another one, and they would go and take them and hold them as slaves and then sell them to white slavers.
In fact, there were several nations in West Africa that were basically ruined by the British ending the slave trade because that was their entire economy.
Yeah, it broke them financially. Yeah.
Like the Dahomey tribe and a couple of other ones in West Africa that were actually fairly wealthy kingdoms were absolutely ruined by it. Like they never recovered.
Oh, definitely. Kingsport, Cal. Like I grew up in Fredericksburg and we had Jeffersons and Washingtons in the black community. And you knew that they derived from those households because they were given Christian names, and the household, whoever they belonged to, that was their name. And it always surprised me when I was younger that they didn't change their name once it became free, but they just accepted that as their name. They didn't know any other name. They had been bonded sometimes 3-4 generations into being slaves. That was all they knew. They knew nothing more. That's what made the book and the miniseries Roots so amazing. Even though he made up stuff, it's true. He made up certain things, but for dramatic purposes. These people really did exist in Roots. And I was so profoundly moved. I was in Virginia, grew up in Virginia, and I watched that. And I'm like, wow, this town was fucked up. Because growing up in downtown Fredericksburg, it was called the Slave Stone in downtown. And it was held as a monument, as a memorial to remind us not to do that. And I was kind of pissed when they took it off the street because they acted like people of Virginia which is typically Fredericksburg is a very liberal area.
Mhm.
Having the stone there was celebratorial for those who are pro-slavery, and I'm like, who are you talking about? Nobody in Fredericksburg is like that. That was there for a reason, as a marker to remind us of what this ugly fucking thing was that we sold other human beings. And now you put it, they dug it out of the ground and moved it into a museum. So you got to go to the museum to look at it now. I said, is this more about tax dollars than it is about doing the moral thing? Because the moral thing would be to have left it there as a reminder.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, you know, some of those families from that town that I'm friends with some of those people that were born into money, you know, that their families that they came from were slave owners, and they had to see that thing every day and be reminded of it. But no, they wouldn't tell you.
And a lot of the Northerners get it twisted too, where they're like, "Oh, well, we treated blacks so much better." It's like, no, actually. In fact, multiple foreign newspapers were reporting right about the time of the Civil War that the quote unquote freed black people in the North were in some cases treated much, much worse than a slave in the South.
They often were. And what's worse is that's if you've never seen or read the book 12 Years as a Slave, that was a free black man sold into slavery.
Yep.
And there's a lot of detestable fucking people in this history of this country. But I will tell you, the most forward thinking were our forefathers. Despite some of their shortcomings, they really saw things in a way that right now, if people would stop trying to interpret the Constitution
and just
we
read
would
it
be in better shape. We would be in better shape right now if they would stop doing that shit. Because it's pretty plain and clear.
Well, and both sides are guilty of it, of trying to twist the words in the Constitution to fit their own political narrative or agenda.
Yeah, because once you start doing that's exactly what you end up doing. Just heed the words as they're written. And it's like I told somebody, I said, if you read the New Testament, you could end up being a really crappy Christian if you start paying attention to Paul.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The hero. A little bit of Peter, but more Paul. Paul is the asshole of the New Testament. I don't like Paul. And I remember when Father Williams, he said, what do you mean? Why don't you like him? You got to go, Joe?
Yeah, I got to get, man. You
all
guys
right, buddy, get out of here.
Foxy's on lunch, so I got to go. You guys be
all
good.
All right, buddy. I'll see you later, man.
All of you.
Good seeing you, man.
Yep. I'll stop.
See you, man.
Mm-hmm.
So I just... I was so floored by a lot of that. But anyway, we should wrap up anyway. That is one thing that Anima has started taking notice to, because like I started getting her to watch with me the changing of the guard for the Unknown Soldier. And she's like, why did they walk like that? Why do they do that? And I said, this is all about ceremony. This is the beautiful aspect of being a soldier, is the ceremony. And she couldn't understand. I said, when you see that man grab the weapon, and I was always taught, the minute you see the officer or sergeant make a move for your weapon, let go and go to attention. Your hands go to your side. If that weapon hits the ground, it's on them, not you.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I'm talking about, because Marines are proud of their DNC. And doing drill and ceremony is something that I took very personally. I wanted to learn. I wanted to be honor guard. I wanted to go to Arlington and all that, but I didn't get picked to go do honor guard. My ex did. She got picked because I was always stuck in charge of people. I wasn't going to get shipped out to that. They needed me to run the teams, you know, my platoon, my squad. Having a hard time understanding why a ceremony has to look so weird. It doesn't.
Ceremonies always
it's beautiful.
look.
She says something weird, and I'm like, how can you see that as weird? That is beautiful to me when you watch them do that. That heel to toe march that they do going out of the building for the changing of the guard takes so much training and skill to learn to do that. And it's such an honor.
That slowly, that deliberately. And every motion is intentional and very
there's nothing incidental going to happen here. Everything is pre-planned and has to go a certain way. Otherwise, you look bad.
Yeah, and it's a demonstration of the discipline that those soldiers have, that they are able to do
there's
that.
the word. It's physical, spiritual, and psychological discipline. And that is what that whole ceremony is all about. And it's not about the soldier doing the ceremony. It is about the soldier they're doing the ceremony for, the tomb of the unknown soldier. And it's just one of the ways that military soldiers get to show their respect for the fallen. And it means a lot when you get to do it. I never got to do it, and it always broke my heart that I didn't get to do that, do honor guard.
Like the few funeral details I actually got put on were some of the best details I ever worked in the military. I mean, the ceremony itself is miserable because you're out there in a thick, dark blue wool coat in the middle of the summer. But we don't let it get to us because you are here for them, that fallen veteran or Marine that you are there to pay respect to.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I love watching like the British Guard when they changing of the guard there. And I sat there personally, went there, I think 6 times to watch the changing of the guard because I just was so in love with it. That pomp and ceremony. Now, Anima didn't understand, still doesn't quite understand it, why officer cadets wore the classic cannoneer helmet, the tall helmets that would go under the lip and not under the chin. And the reason why it was first started that way was because there was a concern that the enemy might come up behind you and take your chin strap and try to choke you with it. So they began wearing it here between the chin and the bottom lip. And now it's part of dress and ceremony. And I think it's handsome as hell. And you see it, the cleanness of that uniform. And they still wear it for special occasions with West Point. West Point also has the regular military hat, you know, the one dress uniform. And but they also have that clan. It's the pomp and circumstance used to play it on trombone. It's just there's something so emotional about the whole ceremony that real military people, real soldiers are emotionally attached to. And it's one of the few times you'll see soldiers get emotional is watching those ceremonies. I get very emotional watching it.
And if you want to know how important those ceremonies are to, you know, not only servicemen but veterans, do it wrong. Watch how many times you get corrected by people who saw you do it.
Absolutely. There was a video of this guy that's former military that went and did that, did the whole thing pretty much on mark, almost perfect. Because what I always hated, like when you see a movie with soldiers and they're doing drill and ceremony, and you see them doing stuff with their weapon.
Look who's here!
Hey, Rough Girl, long time no see.
Oh my God!
It's been a year since we last saw her. Oh man, good to see you.
And she's commenting from X.
Outstanding. Yeah, it's when you see these guys, this one dude, I wish I could find it again. Let's see if I can find it. Army drill and ceremony. There's this guy that's not been in the military for a bit, and he did the out of uniform, went up and did it with this soldier, and it was so fucking cool to watch that he hadn't really lost much of anything. He knew everything to do, because every single movement you do with the weapon when you're doing the inspection has a purpose and a meaning, and it's specifically for that rifle, the M1.
Yeah.
Even though you have an inspection for an M16 as well, when I was in, the inspection they do in drill and ceremony is for the M1. And I'm looking to see if I can find that video, because I love that video. This guy went in there and walked up to the soldier and did it, and it was just gorgeous. And everybody was kind of, whoa! He's like, on mark. I'm not finding it yet. If I find it, I'll show it to you sometime. Share it.
And it's important enough for, like, especially those ceremonial details, like the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier or the Marine Barracks at 8th and I. that the rule is with those details, if you mess up once in a public ceremony, you are off that detail. You will be reassigned.
Yeah, and by the way, when the command inspection takes place and the sergeant's walking towards the soldier, it looks like he's floating.
Mm-hmm.
If he's doing it correctly, his shoulders will not move, and he will look like he's gliding into them. I love that. I'm still looking at Marine drilling ceremony, but here I found it. All right, I don't know if I can share it. I may have to give this to you, Martin. Found the video. It's in the private chat now. There you go. The inspection is done very specifically. Every gesture done with the hand is done for a specific reason. The looking down the barrel, because a lot of people are like, what's he looking down the barrel for? He's looking to make sure you don't have shit in your fucking barrel. Make sure you cleaned it properly. No lint. It should be smooth, clean reflection with that white glove. And the white gloves are good for that because you can look down a barrel and the light reflects off it into the barrel. Martin, do you see it?
Yes, I'm trying to.
This guy's former military and he comes in and does this.
It's been shared? Okay.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, I like the little soft. Oh, he does. Hey, he does what you do. He goes around the world.
I actually know that guy. That's Mike Glover.
Yep. I knew you'd know who he was.
He's an absolutely based individual if you've ever seen his podcast.
I also like Keegan. That dude's so cool.
Whoa.
His video breakdowns are hilarious.
Yo.
Yeah.
Not perfect at the end, but that's still fucking impressive. You know,
he knows that
while
because he was on that detail for a while.
Yes, he was. Love that shit.
And it goes to show you how well trained those guys are, and that it had probably been 20 years since he'd done that and did it all pretty much perfectly.
Muscle memory, man. It's like if you learn how to ride a bicycle and you don't ride a bike for 40 years, guess what? You can still ride a bicycle.
Yep.
So, all right, man. Let's wrap this shit up. Call it a day. I have to put a call into Don Ecker about tonight's show. I'll be joining Don Ecker tonight. I'm curious what we're going to be talking about. So I'll probably be putting a call in here in a few minutes. Learn. Plus, by the way, Pope, I hope you're going to be there. We are going to do another Dangerous Military Nerds episode. We're going to be interviewing John Del Vecchio.
Okay.
And also down the line, we'll be interviewing my friend. Both of them are friends. In fact, John Del Vecchio is one of my business partners when we created that company, Charlie Foxtrot Entertainment, which I named, and they thought was hilarious.
Every vet will.
Cluster Fuck Entertainment is the name of your company, Charlie Foxtrot. I'm like, that's right. So John's going to be joining us on a DMN to talk about his new book, or new edition of his book. And then Fahim Fasli, when his book gets released, she's wanting Julia from Dale Dye's company, his wife. She's going to be scheduling with me to have Fahim on to promote the book. And of course, I did the cover art for it. So I'll get to talking about that. And Fahim and I have been friends for a long time.
No, I absolutely want to be there for that because, you know, talking to vets is obviously a thing I have fun doing.
It's something because I believe that a lot of us are the same way. We tend to gravitate towards other veterans. And that's why there are so many buddies of mine, close friends of mine that are all veterans. And because we feel, I don't know. It's a commonality. There's comfort in it.
Yeah, there's a common point. There's a common point of reference for all of us.
Also, because something happens in the military that doesn't happen in the civilian world is the kind of bond you make with the other person. My dad told me when I was a kid, the friendships you make in the military will be like nothing you've ever had before or ever will again. And there's this bond and a trust that happens that just doesn't happen with civilian friends. It just doesn't. It rarely reaches that level of trust and closeness. And the other thing I love about it is the guys you serve with won't let you get away with shit either.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Or other people will ignore stuff. They will just fucking call you out like on the spot. What the fuck's wrong with you? What are you fucking doing? Somebody got a little full of themselves this weekend. Because there's just, I don't know, we get right down to the brass tacks in the military. And I tend to like to be around people that I can trust, that won't just bail at the first turn of trouble or tension. Vets just don't do that. Real vets. Usually grunts is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And you won't find many yes men in that group. Like, it's not like, oh yeah, that's the best idea ever. If we think it's a bad idea, we'll look at you like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Yeah,
exactly. And another thing, I ran into this this chappie was talking to me, and he says, there are no atheists in the foxholes. I said, yeah, there are. I can point out a lot of guys I served with that were top-notch combat effective motherfuckers that absolutely did not believe in a God. What you won't find is a liberal.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because every single one of these guys are guys that are ready to bleed for this country. And you just don't find liberals in that group. Or I should say left-thinking liberals. I've known Democrats, but they were not very liberal. They were very conservative in their views. And I always laughed and I said, technically, I'm socially liberal. I'm fiscally conservative in that I don't want overspending. I want to save people's tax dollars. People should get their money back. Politicians should not be giving themselves raises. Things like that. I think that's...
And you'll find a lot of old school, like what we refer to as blue dog liberals in the military.
Blue dog Democrats. That's what Keith is.
Like working class, like for the, common guy Democrats. What you will never find...
Hubert Humphrey.
Yeah. Those kind of liberals. What you will almost never find is the modern, anti-American, anti-patriotic left.
America is the problem.
That are very pro-government, because let's face it, we all worked for the government. We know better than to trust them.
That don't know the difference between nationalism and patriotism.
Yeah.
I don't like people like that. If you can't tell the difference, get the fuck away from me. Yeah, she thinks she's going to get time with me now. Anyway, I do need to put a phone call into Don Ecker. So good hanging out with you, Pope. It was good hanging out with Joe. Good seeing you, Martin, as usual. I want to thank Sci-Fi Mombi, D-Bud, Martin, Kingsport, Cal, Anima Confusa, love of my life, FKHC 2005, aka Tim, Radioactive, Rough Girl, the Peter Vickman fan site, Vickman's Girl, and of course our good buddy Zax was here, not mentioned in here for some reason. Martin, did you get everybody?
Yep.
Well, he's not in there. But Rough Girl has made an appearance after a year. Finally get to see her. I mean, I see her on Facebook and I see her on Twitter occasionally, but I haven't seen her in our chat in a long time. It's good to see her. So, anyway, and Anima's been a member for 21 months. Same amount of time we've been dating. I'm not saying I'm a whore, but she pays to be with me. That's twice in one day I've called myself a whore. I was talking to Julia today, and I told her, I said, well, she goes, well, how much do you want for that? And I said, you tell me, just tip me. and I said, I look, just consider me your corner crack whore. How much you gonna pay me? She laughed at that. So, but anyway, I will see you guys later. I hope everybody enjoyed the show today. There's a lot of good discussion. We talked about a variety of subjects. I like that. I like that mishmash. So, anyway, everybody have a good Monday, and we will be back tomorrow. Well, wait, is there a show tomorrow, Martin?
Yes, a repeat of LA Confidential.
I will not be doing a show on Wednesday. I'm not going to be able to do a Wednesday show until I get back to Springfield internet, because the internet won't handle gaming here. Plus, I don't have my controller. I don't know what happened to it. It is not in my stuff, so I'm thinking it ended up in the back of the vehicle, Scott's vehicle. So I really need to get a hold of him as soon as possible. So, but love you guys. I deeply appreciate it, man. And that's something, by the way, Pope will know this as a military veteran. We say we love each other all the fucking time, and it is something that we mean at a level that I don't know if people understand the depth of a soldier's love towards another soldier. It's just great love, and it's that willingness to do something that could cost you your life just for another human being. And by the way, my head, when you did that, looked like his head for a second there. Let me put that back up there. How did you have that? How did you have that, dude? How did you do that, Martin?
What are you talking about? I haven't done.
Maybe it was.
I've done
Oh wait,
nothing.
I know how you did it. I know how you did it. This is how you did it. There. Now my head looks like his head in the background. So anyway, you guys have a good day today. Stay close to me here in the next few weeks, pups, because I really want to get you involved with any of the veteran stuff I'm going to be doing. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
I appreciate it, man. It's good having you on here. Everybody have a great day today, and we will see you next time. Bye.
See ya.
Everybody heard about the herd. Tin roof busted. It wasn't a rock. It was a rock lobster.
What's up, folks?